All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We've got another awesome episode of Mission Briefing. So I'm very excited to have Ben Newman here. Thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and today we're going to be looking at Apollo Client 3 when there's a lot of really awesome things. Ben is largely responsible for a decent chunk of those awesome things. And so to have him on here is really awesome. I'm very excited. I can't wait to see what we will do. But do you want to take a second, maybe introduce yourself a little bit more, talk about Apollo Client 3.0 and all that fun
Sure.
jazz? Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I've been at the company Meteor Development Group for 5 going on 6 years now, which makes me one of the longest uh, serving members of the company as not a founder. And in that time, we've tackled a bunch of different stuff from the Meteor JavaScript platform to all things Apollo. Um, and I was one of the holdouts working on Meteor for a long time, but maybe 2 years ago, I switched over to work full time on Apollo client stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and it's it's been a very different experience, but one thing that I love about Apollo is that it's just a library. It's incrementally adoptable,
Yeah.
all TypeScript, and yeah. So whenever I try to describe what is coming in Apollo Client 3, I have to remind myself that like there's sort of two audiences. One is like current users of Apollo
Hmm.
who are probably familiar with Apollo Client 2, and then a potentially much larger audience is composed of people who have never used Apollo before.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that I'm sort of, speaking at the same time to
Love
both of
it.
those. Um, and I think a good place to start is to think about why you might need a GraphQL client at all. I'll sort of assume that you're sold on GraphQL as an idea, but why a client? Obviously, you can just use like fetch, the fetch API to do
Yeah.
HTTP requests of a GraphQL server, and that actually works really well.
TM just works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, you might think if you're sort of in the web development browser mindset, like, okay, well, maybe you want to just remember some of the responses that you get back from the GraphQL server, so you don't have to like do those exact same queries again.
Yep.
Um, but that line of thinking runs into some dead ends because GraphQL as a query language is very dynamic, where it can be, and you might end up issuing queries to the server that are slightly different from anything you've ever requested before.
Yeah.
And so you don't want your caching system to be just like totally tied to the exact format of your GraphQL queries. Um, so the way that I like to think about it, Apollo, we don't actually call ourselves the GraphQL company. We didn't
Right.
invent GraphQL after all. But one of our slogans is that we call ourselves the data graph company, and that's because we think there's a ton of value in having a schema, having a unified, coherent graph of all the data in your organization,
Yeah.
so that people can coordinate and work independently on different products and features without being blocked on the backend teams building another REST endpoint and so on and so forth. So this idea of the data graph that lives somewhere in the sky is really foundationally important to what we're doing. And in that context, GraphQL client, it sort of becomes responsible for replicating a small part of that data graph, whatever part of it the user is interacting with on the client side. So it's not going to be the whole thing.
Right.
You don't
Yeah.
want to pull down your entire data graph, um, but it is going to need to be actually more like graph-like in terms of like nodes and edges, um, than GraphQL itself, where the result objects that you get back, it's always a tree, something you could easily serialize to JSON and back.
Right.
And so the job, as I see it, of Apollo client is to, help you make GraphQL requests, send queries to the server. But then when the results come back, they get sort of ingested into an internal representation that looks more like your data graph. It
Yeah.
has entity objects and they have fields and they can refer to each other, even in cycles. Um, and the upshot of all of that is that if you have a faithful replica of a small subset of your data graph on the client, then the client can respond to a wide variety of flexible dynamic queries that your application might want to issue. Um, as long as the data is there on the client, it doesn't
Yeah.
have to go to the server, right?
Right. Right.
And so that kind of flexible, domain specific caching approach, I think, will allow people to build richer client-side applications that in a lot of cases are able to re-render themselves without having to fetch new data from the server. So that's the overarching goal of a GraphQL client, I think.
Yeah, I think that's really well put. And just one quick thing that I want to touch on, which I find very interesting, is like that's one of the beauties of GraphQL, is that oh, real quick, Michael, thank you for the follow. Yeah, is that you don't want your whole graph. It's like you said, one of the beauties of GraphQL is that the client now has the power to choose exactly what data that it needs, and that's really what you're trying to replicate as opposed to the entire graph. And that's just an interesting point, something I've never thought about before. So that's cool. Thanks for sharing that. And
Yep.
Salt and Burnham 313, thanks for jumping in. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, cool.
And then I don't know, to those people who are coming from Apollo Client 2,
Yeah.
um, my umbrella description of what's new in Apollo Client 3 is that we're giving you more tools to manage that client-side data graph and express whatever like logical relationships you want to enforce between the objects in that graph. And it's all opt-in, so it's sort of like as fancy as you want to get, but the reward at the end of that is that once you've written down that information in the form of type policies or cache policies,
Yeah.
um, you never have to think about it again. It's all in one place, and the constraints just get enforced by the code that you wrote.
Nice. Yeah,
So
that's awesome. Yeah, so speaking of cache policies, there's a couple different like routes that we could kind of take here from this point. I mean, well, the very first thing we have to do is just spin up like a client so that we can start interacting. But I'm just curious, like, what are the things that you would like to really showcase? I know a couple things I'm super interested in that I think people would really love, which is type policies and reactive variables. I'm very
mhm.
excited about those two things. But yeah, I
Yeah,
was curious to see like what else you thought would be interesting to talk about. Yeah.
yeah. Well, there's a lot there, so
Yeah, there is.
we'll see
Yeah.
how far we get.
Okay. Yeah.
Another big difference between AC2 and AC3 is that AC2, oh, cool, Siri turned on. Must have said something that sounded like that. Was really good at like accumulating data over time and not so good at ever removing it from the client or from the cache. So there are some features in AC3 around
Oh,
deliberate
right.
eviction,
Yes.
um, and also garbage collection, so that you can sort of prune stuff that doesn't seem to be queryable
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll have to keep an eye out for any opportunities where that would showcase itself.
Yeah, I would love to see that. It's really interesting. That's something that I would have found useful a while back, like when I was at Major League Soccer, because like we would cache a lot of data about games, but like once those games are over, and they're in the past, like a while, a lot of times people
Yep,
never go back and look at them, and that's like space you want to free up. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so I'm just gonna create a project, and we'll call, we'll do, I'll say MS for, or MB for mission briefing, and then Apollo client 3. Sounds good to me. Yeah, so I'm just gonna create a React app, just a simple React app. We'll get Apollo client set up, and then we can start going through everything. We'll connect it to an API. So while that's installing, let me go back here. And also, I've got the links, so I'm just putting the links to the doc. Scoro, thank you for the follow. Back links to the doc here in the chat, so you can, if we dive in here, you can follow along. And also, we're going to be using countries.trevorblades.com is a serverless GraphQL API that you can use to query. Oh, wow. No thanks. I don't think I'll be buying any followers. I got to figure out how to. Sure. Uh, Sorry, Rui Legend. See you later. I do not want to become famous or buy followers. But thanks for the offer. Cool. All right. So yeah, and here is a link to countries Trevor Blades. And so here we have just loaded up. If I run this, boom, New Zealand. So this is cool. So we already have an API that we can use. We could just attach to this. So let me jump back in. You want to be famous, Chris? Okay. I mean, uh,
And get in touch with Rui Legend.
yeah, I was just gonna say. Yeah, links in the chat. Oh, all right. Oh, I should figure out. I think I could delete these messages somehow, but I'm not Twitch savvy enough yet. I'm still learning. Yeah. Okay, so we've got our project. So what I'm gonna do is actually, I'm not gonna CD in here. Let's just open folder, projects. Cool. I got a lot of projects in here. All right. All right. So this is open, and I'm gonna share like this whole project with you. So you'll actually be able to have VS Code open and work within this project if I should start to destroy everything.
All right.
Yeah. Uh, so I was just gonna start this session up. All right. So that's copied. So I'll just DM you that real quick. Cool. And so while that's happening, let me start making everything read right. So we'll have that terminal, and then we'll do another one, share that one, and then let's go ahead and yarn start. And I can even share my local host port with you. Like,
Oh, wow.
yeah, once the React app spins up, I can share that port, and you can go to your local host 3000, and it'll actually be my local host. It's really trippy. VS Code for the win. This has become like my new favorite thing. Oh, cool. It's already being shared with you, so you should be able to go to localhost 3000 once you get all set up. Yeah. Just started learning GraphQL and enjoying the stream. Oh, Sandeep03, thank you so much. And we're glad that you are here because we love doing this for you. Honestly, most important for me at this point would be to migrate from AC2 to AC3 without things breaking. I use View Apollo. Not sure about the state of that. To be honest, the only things, well, I know from the React side, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but like the Surface API, a lot of the things aren't changing. So going from 2 to 3, really the most affected you would be is changing where some of your imports are coming from because Apollo Client now contains more of the external or dependencies are packaged up with client that you would have had to install anyway to get started with it, like a lot of things that Boost provided, or just doing it manually in that setup. But as far as writing queries and mutations and setting up your subscriptions, that is largely the same as version 2.
Yeah, that's correct.
Cool.
Um, it's always possible that something
For sure. Yeah.
will have changed, but we fully intend to keep supporting any view layer that you want to use.
Yep.
So definitely file an issue.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. So that's good. I don't know. Were you able to join the VS Code live share or no?
I'm gonna try it again. It's still loading the file tree.
So if that happens, sometimes it does. It might help to quit VS Code and then open
Uh-huh.
the URL because if it like opens
Okay.
from another project or something, it gets like weird. Sometimes we don't get it to work very well, which is fine. I'm still sharing my screen with you,
Yeah,
so
you'll watch your screen.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. You'd be able to correct anything. But yeah, we'll give it a shot. Oh, okay. So
okay,
now we got
much
progress.
better.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. Now I'm seeing the
The file tree?
localhost 3000.
Cool.
Great.
Awesome. Yeah, so this is cool. And then Yeah, I'll be able to like, yeah, cool. So now we're both in app.js, and I can see you're showing up there as well. All right, so
Sweet.
yeah, that's all good. So yeah, so we're ready to go. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is get Apollo client set up. So I'm just gonna add those dependencies. We only need two now. So it's at Apollo slash client and then GraphQL, which is different from version 2 where it was Apollo client, right? Like
Yeah,
dash.
Apollo hyphen client.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Boom. Oh, wait. Oops. I did it incorrect, didn't I? Is that right? At
Switch
Apollo
back to that
client?
screen.
Yeah, sorry.
Uh,
Yarn. Oh, yarn
oh,
add.
yarn
It
add.
would
Yeah.
help if I add that. Boom.
And no
Okay.
yarn expert.
Yeah,
But
yeah. It's pretty much the same as NPM. Like, I don't know why I just used it
yeah,
for a while now, and I just like have stuck with it because I don't
yeah.
know. Yeah. Yeah, the imports are better. Thanks. So I'm glad that you're finding them better. That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Apollo Client 3 with SSR. I have not configured that, but again, I don't think much has changed there, so it should work. TM.
Yeah, there is still a separate package, the at Apollo slash React dash SSR package, um,
Apollo
I believe.
slash React SSR, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Oops. Whoever at
um,
Apollo is, they just got mentioned in chat.
yeah. I will say that still works by just using React's rendering utilities, and when a promise is encountered, we just like queue it up and then like wait uh, until it's resolved to render again with the cached value. So
Yeah.
um, once we're fully integrated with suspense, if that ends up being the direction that people go for SSR, I think that story will get even better. But that's a post AC3 thing.
So, and then talking back to the differences of the imports, and whereas I believe HTTP link and in-memory cache were separate packages, they're now
Yep.
included with clients. So we can do this. And so then what we can do, because we have our HTTP link, so now we just say Apollo client and our oops URI.
Yeah.
That's going to be
Thanks, TypeScript.
yeah, I know, I love it. IntelliSense like gets me through like so much code. That's why I love type languages.
Sure.
I did a stream with Ellen, and we went through the iOS client, and like I barely ever write Swift. I've never used the iOS client. I was just control
Yep.
space barring my way through the entire app. It's
Yep.
like yeah.
It's the dream.
Oh yeah. Countries trevorblades.com. And then we could say cache is going to be a new in-memory cache. Oh wait, we don't need HTTP link itself, right? I don't
Ah, right.
I don't
Yeah,
think
because
we do
it's
because I'm just doing
part of
the
it now.
yeah.
Yeah.
If I was going to build out my own link, like if I wanted to add subscriptions or authentication or something, then
Right.
I would need it at that point. So now we have this. So now it just we are going to add our Apollo provider, and we're going to give it the client, and we're off to the races, really. And so now this is what it is like to configure Apollo Client 3.0 in a React app. We're done. Pretty sweet.
There we go. Good stream.
Yeah, yeah. See you
Yeah,
all
thanks for
later.
having me.
Thanks for joining. Oh my gosh. Okay. Sorry, real quick. Cool.
Yeah. So let's see.
All right.
In case you're familiar with Apollo Link from Apollo Client 2, that API is staying pretty much the same as before. So if you have links that you've used in the past other than HTTP link,
They'll work.
you probably will not need any changes to
Yeah.
be compatible with AC3.
Yeah, I have found this to be true. I have like links that I've set up for stuff with WebSockets, and I just dropped them in and they
Yeah.
worked. So yeah. Okay, very cool. So next step file upload link was not working with the beta. That's interesting. Do you have more?
Um,
Yeah, a little bit more information on that, or an issue or something would be cool, like a link to that. Oh, okay. I don't know.
okay.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do we maintain the upload link? Do you know?
I think we do not. I think basically it's just HTTP link that we
Ah,
maintain.
the
But
termination of the link was not compatible. Interesting. I'd be
okay.
interested to hear more about that. Yeah, but yeah, for
Yeah.
for a large part, it should work. I've had a bunch just drop in and they just work. I'm sure with any major, you know, version, there's a chance for things to need a little updating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the
There are
next,
some links that assume more about the client, I think, that could run into trouble. But if you're just using the vanilla link API, I don't think we've changed too much, but you could file an issue if you find that not to be the case.
yeah. Why is this doing this? I tried to open up DevTools. There we go, and it opened up in its own window, and I can't figure out how to. Normally, it's got the options to pick your windows, but it's not giving me that. I want you to go back. Go back. Wow, I'm
Hop
like
in.
tripping, really tripping out on this. Focus debugger, show console drawer, more tools. Like where's dock to the left?
Let's see.
Oh well, I'll just bring it over here. But yeah, like normally when you click this, there's the buttons to dock.
Oh, and it's not under that little vertical dot dot dot.
No, yeah, which is blowing my mind,
Huh,
right?
yeah.
Oh, I think I know what
It,
happened. I think I know what happened. I think the chat window is focused, and I just opened the debugger for chat. Yep, that's what it was. For like, I have
got it.
the Twitch chat in its own little browser window.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, cool. This might be a little big. We could bring that down just one. Let me go see how that looks. Yeah, cool. All right, so we're ready. We're up and running. We got no errors, so we're all configured. Everything is good to go. I'd say the first thing that we should do is just like maybe pull in some data. Just make like a very simple query, and then
Cool.
just see
Yeah.
what we got. Right. So I'm just gonna take the query that they have here. And let's get that rendered on the page. So now I'll go to app.js and this will just become basically our dumping ground for everything that we do. Cool. Oops. Oops. And so again, this used to be in React Hooks project, but now you can just import use query from Apollo client, um, which is pretty neat. All right, so we've got use query, and then we need uh, we'll just call it country. Wait, and then also we need GQL, which is also here. Very convenient. Everything you
Yeah.
need.
The story with GQL is we want to have the freedom to change how that works in the future.
Yeah.
So bringing it into Apollo Client, even if it's just sort of re-exported for now, allows us to do that.
Oh, absolutely. Makes sense to me. All right, so we've got this. We've got use query. We've got our country, but we haven't really done anything with it yet. Let's rip out all of this. Shaboo. And then we will say const will have data loading error. And then, equals from. I'm like, where am I at right now? Use query country. Um, cool. And so then we can say, just real quick, if there is actually, let's do this. We still want our app, but if we hit an
Sure.
error, um, you broke it, and then we'll put the error message in there too. Oops. One of each one there. And then here we will say, um, oh, interesting. I'm going to have to change this. Let's see if this works. Okay. Um, Oh, the H1 needs to be outside of this. What am I doing? What am I doing? Okay, there we go. Getting with it. All right. Yeah, so we want H1. I don't know if it's going to like this.
Oh, closing tick.
Yeah, oh, I know what's happening. Gosh, it's like, what is going on? Yeah, I definitely need a closing tick as well. But I also need this. This is what I was doing incorrectly. It's like, have you ever wrote JSX before? Apparently not. And then inside of this, I need a tick. I also got a new mechanical keyboard, and you have to hit the function key to do the like tick, and it's really messing me up. But yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
important character.
It is, and so I'm still trying to get used to it, and then like I just focus on that, and everything else falls apart. But now we can just say error.message. Cool. So there we go. Then I'm not closing this. Yay! Now we're handling errors. Love it.
Good.
Yeah. So now we could say load. Oops. Loading. And if that's true, we'll do one thing. Otherwise, we'll do another thing. Keep it very simple. Cool. And now here we can handle, we have results. So we'll say H1, and this will be, so we have our data. Let's do this. Data country. Oh, but it might not be available there. Data.country.name. Oh, and we can actually also do space data country emoji. And this is enough. Let's just see if this is working. Hey, New Zealand.
All right.
We're in. Hackers, we're in. All right, cool. So yeah, so we're good. We've got that all set up. So I think the next thing is figuring out the first thing we kind of want to show off, and then we'll build it. We'll just build it out. We'll make the changes that we need to accommodate this.
Sure.
Yeah. So what? Let's see. What's the first thing you kind of want to talk about?
Great question. So right now we're fetching one country
Yeah.
with a hard-coded argument that I think is the country code
Yeah.
NZ.
Yeah.
Um, I suppose over in app.js we could replace that string literal with a variable, and then
Start making this.
pass that variable in to use query.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Just so that it.
A little more dynamic and not so. Yeah. I love it. Okay, so and then also what we should do is name this, because like, goodness gracious.
Yeah.
So query country, and then this is now going to take code. Oops, wait. So this will be.
Yeah, it's a dollar sign and then a
code,
type,
which is a string in our case, and we want it to be required, and then we can say code. Boom. We're also not using this, so I'm just going to take it out right now, just because.
Yeah.
Not being used.
Very cool, but.
Yeah. And so now here we could pass our variables, and then code, and then to get the same result, let's try it with NZ, and make sure that we are in fact back to parity. Cannot read property country of undefined. Ooh, I broke it already. See? Oh.
Must be an earlier error.
Oh, is it because I named the query? No, right? It should just be on country. Hang on 1 second. Variables NZ. Come back up here. Query country. Code string. Country code. Okay. So all that looks right.
Yeah.
Soccer
Maybe we
nothing.
just
Yeah.
let's see. What was country undefined or was data?
That's a good question. Well, I think data was undefined.
Okay.
Cannot read property country
Yeah.
of undefined. So, bad request. Bad request. Variable code of type string used in position expecting ID. Busted. Okay, so.
Okay. Well,
I used the wrong type. I should have checked my types. And that's what I get.
Yeah.
So if we go to country and we click on this, code is an ID type, not a string type. So that's why it
Okay.
rejected my query. It was like, get out of here. Uh,
Yeah, if you say so, GraphQL.
yeah, right. I must abide by GraphQL. It is law. The type is
Yeah. So
law.
yeah, I think that's the only change we need.
Yeah, I would think so. Hey yo, New
Okay.
Zealand.
Cool.
All
Want to
right.
just try like
Different code,
I
right?
don't know. Can you think of any other countries?
Let's just put something in. Let's just guess. And then someone from the chat, did anything change when it comes to set context by Apollo link context? No, it did not. And actually, this was in a previous stream. If you go to the Apollo YouTube channel, there was a mission briefing episode on setting up authentication with Auth0. And we use the Apollo link context and set context to do just that, to use set JWTs on the client. So you should be good there.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So
We got
let's.
some suggestions,
Oh,
a CH and
CH.
an IT.
Okay, so let's try CH and then we'll try IT next. Nice. Oh, cool. Switzerland. What?
Nice.
Yeah, that
Did
worked.
not realize that was Switzerland's code.
Me either. Is IT Italy? I'm just going to guess. It is. Ayo.
100%.
Cool. All right. UK. Yeah, that's another one. Yeah, that makes sense. Um,
Um,
Here we go.
quickly, can we throw together like a little input box that accepts these things?
Yes. Yeah, that's so much better. Why not, right? Yeah, let's absolutely do that. Okay, so regardless of whether or not we have that, we're going to want an input. Uh, Value will be equal to code, which is not defined yet, but it will be. And then on change, set code. Should give us,
Oh, you're going to use state?
I guess, yeah. I mean, should we not? What's the better way than not using?
No, yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh, okay. All
Use
right.
it.
All right. Cool. So
Just trying to anticipate.
yeah, yeah. Oops.
I think of myself as a web developer, but like I don't build applications myself very often. So
Gotcha.
this is a mix of deja vu and guessing for me.
Yeah. I guess we'll use state for this. Um, and then we need. Oh, oops. Well, I can't call that set code, so we'll call this handle change.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll get an event, and here we'll be calling set code on e.target.value. Use state is not defined. Well, that's gonna cause a problem. We should probably define that. I thought it was gonna auto import it for me. Goodbye logo, because we're not using that. All right. So this is interesting because I have this loading check. Maybe it's just like,
Oh, well, I mean,
oops.
I think it's starting out with empty string for the code the first time.
Oh, that's, yeah. So we're hitting an error on the first round.
Yeah.
So we need to say loading, or I should set code. Well, what happens if we only type in one? We only want two. I don't want to overcomplicate it. So let's just say or code.length is less than 2, right? Should do what we want.
Sure.
We could use a skip parameter and use query. Um,
Ah, yeah.
we absolutely could do that. That's actually, yeah. So skip would be if code.length is less than 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just so it doesn't try to fetch until you
Yeah.
actually have typed in 2 letters.
I like it. Actually, and this should be skip if it's not equal to 2 because we don't want extra characters either.
Sure.
I'll take it. All
It's
right.
quite a triple not equals ligature.
I know, right? This is the font is called Mono Lisa.
Awesome.
Yeah. Oh, I'm still breaking it, so that did not work.
Okay. Yeah, I guess we're still starting with an empty string by default, but that should have.
I would think that that would make that skip. Oh, but the issue is we're not loading. That's why.
Got it. Yeah.
Because it's not fired.
Because
There's
it's
no,
skipped.
yeah, there's no query. So loading is going to be false. So then it's just rendering, trying to render data. So shaboop. There we
Fancy
go.
programming.
Yeah, there we go. So now let's try. We had one for EE. I'm bad at programming. They don't call me the worst dev for nothing. All right, let's go back and figure this out. So this time there would be data. What was the error? You can, yeah. And that did not fail.
Well,
Let me go to,
country is null, but data is fine. Did we
yeah,
just, we might have gotten a GraphQL error
that's what I'm checking now. Cannot
if
read property
there's
name.
no EE.
No, I'm saying I can't read property name of null. Oh, yeah. Why? Oh, EE is not a country.
Okay.
Country is not there. Country is optional. So watch this. The quick fix. Um,
Oh, yeah.
boom. Optional chaining.
That's right.
Let's see if that worked. So now if I do EE, it just, we don't get a result,
Okay.
but it doesn't break. UK. Although, what was the other one? None of them are working.
CH. Yeah. Well, must be something else.
Yeah, well, it's just what I've done. And I think it's the code around this. I don't think this is like gonna hold up.
Okay.
And then, yeah, I think we're not getting back a country. I'm just gonna console log data because I'm very curious.
Yeah.
I don't understand what's happening here. Oh, we're back to that because I took that out.
Yeah.
How about this? Watch this. Yeah, yeah. When in doubt, comment it out. And now if we go to the console, undefined country null. It's very interesting. So let's do this. We know NZ is one. Yeah. See, that's interesting. Oh. Oh. I think I know what's happening. Well, first of all, we're still setting code, just hard coded to UK.
Okay.
So that's going to be one problem. So this needs to become code.
Yep.
But what's interesting to me is like, why was that still undefined? It should, oh, because we were skipping, I guess maybe. I don't know. That should have worked. UK is a valid country.
Yeah.
Look at this. We're like, oh, welcome to Apollo Client 3.0. Welcome to Kurt. Not figuring. Yeah. Should be GB. UK isn't a valid code. But even still, we tried valid ones. Oh, there it is.
Oh, got a real country.
There it is.
It's not showing up probably just because we commented out
exactly
that part of the render function.
Exactly. So now, all right, so we're making progress.
Thanks for the catch.
Yeah.
The row.
Yep. All right, so so we've got that. So not data or loading. Oops. Should get us back to what we want. And now we can verify. Oh.
Amazing.
Okay. All right.
Thank goodness.
There we go. Cool. All right. I'll take it. It's working.
Yep. It's a good way to
Estonia.
Look at the country flag emoji.
It really is. It's really cool. Oh yeah, I should just do the emoji. Just like return the flag. Well, I'm gonna deploy it to Netlify. You know, tweet it out later. New package.
Flags for you.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. All right, so we've got that. So we're there. We've got that set up. It's working. So what do we want to do next? Like we've got a dynamic query going. We're using skip, which is a fun feature.
Mhm.
I've made use of that a lot.
Yeah, that is a React Apollo like use query specific
Specific
feature.
thing. Yeah.
Is yeah.
Yep. Okay, cool. Yeah. So let's start diving into some of this. Yeah. Let's modify cache. Funny you should mention that.
Nah.
Yeah.
Who is that?
Yeah.
There's a backstory
Yeah. Yeah.
that we can get into later, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. I think so for sure. We should definitely talk about that. Yeah. Do you want
Yeah.
to maybe?
So one thing that's happening already
Yep.
is that as they come back, these countries are going into the cache.
Yeah.
So we could see what that looks like, I guess.
Yeah. You want to
Uh,
take a look at that?
in the in the browser console,
Uh,
there's a way to examine the client.
ooh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's double underscore all caps Apollo underscore client.
Okay.
That's the one. And then cache dot data, maybe dot data again after that. But
Data. Well, that's empty. So just dot data.
yeah, did we just reload the page, by the way?
Oh, interesting. Probably. So that's probably why. Let's
Yeah,
just
I
do
mean,
this. There we go. There we go. Oh, look at that. That's
ah,
cool. That's trippy.
yeah,
All right, and here we go. So we've got this. We've got a root query. We'll pop this open. Let's give it some more room. We got plenty of room. Oh,
yeah,
yeah. Boom. I'm gonna blow it
yeah.
up
So
one more time for the folks at home. There we go.
my speech about this is that we try to like do safe things by default. Um, and one of the things that we do is, we were using the root country field in all of these queries, but
Yeah.
getting back different results based on the arguments,
Yeah.
which were determined by the variables. And so the part in parentheses, where it says code and then the country code, um, is sort of like a extra flavor that we're adding to that otherwise ambiguous field name country.
Yeah.
And so that just sort of keeps the data separate automatically,
This
which
is
is
really
cool.
cool. Yeah, it's really wild. Yeah.
And then you can see that it's also caching the fact that those empty or single character country codes
Yeah.
have no data,
But it's a
which
valid
is
query to the cache, which makes sense. Like I
yeah,
theoretically, that's on me to not query when we don't have the proper data.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you asked for that exact same wrong thing again, it'd be good to get
Exactly.
null back as quickly as possible.
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and so yeah, which is awesome. So this is really cool. So now we have objects in the cache. Like, um, what else? What else can we do? What can we do with like cache policies, and can we do some interesting things there? Like something I was thinking about is like, what if I wanted the name with the emoji, like as one field, so to speak?
sure. Yeah, that sounds like a fun thing to try.
Yeah,
They're both just strings,
yeah,
Unicode strings.
yeah. Pretty much, they're both just Unicode strings. Yeah.
Okay, so um, what we're going to want to do here is make up another field that doesn't actually need to even exist in the schema. Um, so if we go back to where we created the client and the in-memory cache, yeah, we're going to pass some options in here. Type policies.
Look at that. Autocomplete.
Yeah. I do not feel like we could have shipped this API if Apollo Client was a plain JavaScript library. Like TypeScript just makes the exploration of all the surface area of the API so much smoother, I think.
Yeah, no, I definitely
Maybe that
agree.
goes without saying.
Yeah, I've been getting more and more on the TypeScript bandwagon as of late, even for like apps like UI level code, but especially for like libraries and other packages. I think it's invaluable.
Yeah.
Yeah, those types that you get, just having an exact printout in VS Code of exactly what you need and what this thing is and what's available to you is awesome. And a fun fact that not a lot of people know, which I'm starting to find out, and you can do this with anything that's generally typed. It works in graphical, it works in Xcode, it works in everything, is that if you just control spacebar wherever you are, like you don't have to wait for IntelliSense. You can bring up the IntelliSense window yourself. And so a lot of times, like if I'm on in-memory cache, I can control spacebar and it brings it up. So it's like bringing up the IntelliSense information about it. So
Yeah.
you don't have to wait on it. It's cool. I can figure out and discover more information about the things. I can auto import them. Pretty cool.
Yep.
But yeah, okay. So we got our type policies. What are we gonna do with them?
Right.
What
Yeah.
first?
So
Real quick, what is a
go for it.
type policy?
Great question.
Yeah,
So, first of all, the word type is pretty overloaded in programming.
yeah, for sure.
So what we're talking about here are specifically the double underscore type name strings that every object type in your GraphQL schema will have.
Yeah,
So like the smallest valid GraphQL query is just you know double underscore type name inside of curly braces, and that'll give you the type name of the root query type. It's,
yeah,
almost certainly capital Q query. You can see that down at the very bottom. Um, that's such an important piece of information. I mean, maybe not the query type name, but the other ones, the country type name,
yeah.
that Apollo client will add the type name field to automatically to all of your selection sets, so you don't have to keep typing it,
Manually. Yeah, that's
which
great.
is pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
But that so that's the kind of type we're talking about. But more generally, a type policy is a little bit like a class, right? Like when you write a class in many different programming languages, not just TypeScript or JavaScript, you are defining a policy
yeah,
about what should happen when you have something of that type and you like call a method or access a property. And so this is going to feel a little bit different because it's more declarative and there's no like obvious classes involved. Um, but it is somewhat the same. A type policy lets you express things like which fields of objects in this type are the primary keys if it's something other than the default of ID.
that's cool.
Yeah, and then for any fields that the type may have that you could request from the server, you can override what happens when you read that field. You can transform the sort of outgoing value, and you can also customize what happens when you write new data to the field in case you're not happy for whatever reason with the default representation that we see here.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, we've got some examples of both of those planned for later. But I think in this case, what were we going to try to do? Oh yeah, we were going to try to add a new client-side field that is the country name plus the
yeah,
emoji, right?
yeah. I was gonna say we could call it like name with emoji just for the sake of this. Like
Sure.
nothing complicated. Yeah. And then one thing
Yeah.
I did want to note is like these countries are actually a great case for that. Being able to identify the key fields and specify what the ID is because their ID is not called ID, it's called code. So that's actually like
Yep.
a perfect example of that situation.
Indeed.
Okay, cool, awesome. Oh, thank you, Trader X219 for the follow. Much appreciated. Seems like dev tools are broken still. Glad there is access to the
Yes.
cache through the global variable. Yeah, so another thing that you've brought
Right.
up, which maybe, yeah, you want to uh, um, reference there is I think maybe there's some work being done on that as well. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. Yeah, we've been chronically understaffed on dev tools until just recently. We have a woman named Jen who joined us not just to work on dev tools, but that's her main project right now, and already making progress towards getting the dev tools back into the Firefox store. It's always been in the Chrome store. They are at the moment a little broken, but making sure that they work at least as well as they did before is on the critical path for the AC3 launch. So
Yeah.
yes, thank you for flagging that. Keep flagging it if it doesn't seem to get fixed, and especially if we launch AC3 and DevTools still aren't working, then well, we'd love your help with
Absolutely. Yeah.
reporting issues and even the development work if you're so inclined.
Yeah. Yeah. It is open source, so feel free to dive in there and start taking a look around. Right?
Yeah, dev
Um,
tools are fun.
yeah. I love DevTools. Okay. All right. So here we go. Oh yeah. So let's go back. We have our type policies defined, and so now, yeah. So what do we do from here? Like, I imagine this is like, is this almost like shaping like a schema, whereas like this is the type policies, and what I do, the hierarchy of like objects that I define represents kind of like the schema. Like I start from a query and then work my way
Yeah,
down. Is that pretty
yeah,
accurate?
that's right. So I guess the field that we were using before, the country field,
Mm-hmm.
is sort of like a property of the query type.
Yep.
Um, you don't often have any reason to write out, capital Q query
Right.
as a type when you're, you know,
So
building your app, but that is, technically what that type is called. So the keys in this type policies object are those capitalized GraphQL object types. So in this case, at the very least, we want one for query.
got it. Okay, which
Um,
honestly to me is
yeah,
a lot like writing a schema and feels very familiar.
yeah,
And I actually like it
yeah,
because then it's like, oh, it's the exact path in my schema is the exact path for my type policy, and it
totally.
just, yeah, lines up. So then here, because we're calling country, it would be something like this. Oh,
Yeah, almost. In fact, this is
fields.
how I wanted it to be. Yeah,
Yeah.
from the beginning, but TypeScript was a little limiting here.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
just simplifies everything if you confine the field policies and inside of the fields sub object.
Boom. So now it's like this, right? And so now we're
Yep.
saying for the fields on query, and then in this case, we're actually going to adjust country. Is that, and then now we would be doing
Yeah, we
fields.
could do that.
Is that not correct?
Well, country is still a field that we would happily send to the server. It's something that makes sense because it's
Yeah,
actually in the schema.
yeah.
But if we're just going to be making stuff up, then that would be another field, at the same level of indentation as country. So what did we decide? Like name with emoji or
I
something?
see. I see. Yeah, so we'll call it, yeah, name, I'm going to do camel case with emoji. Yeah, and so we can get rid of country here, is what we're saying.
Yeah, for now.
Cool. And so is this an object?
It is. However, we're going to be defining a custom read function. And
Ooh,
since that's such a common thing to do, I will point out a shorthand that you can use to avoid the object.
okay. Yeah.
Uh, but I think for completeness sake
Start with
here, it's
read.
good to have an object. Yeah,
Okay.
call it read. And yeah, you can, um, it's just a function. When I first started this work, I was hoping for a little more help from TypeScript on the like automatic type inference of these arguments.
Yeah.
So uh, in the case of read, if you define that function, it gives you an opportunity to intercept data as it's being read from the cache and maybe change it slightly.
Yeah.
So that like raw cache data comes in as the first argument, and out of convention, I've been calling that. Yeah, you can call it whatever you want.
Oh, what have you been calling it? Because I want to follow the.
Um, sure. Existing, so existing
Ooh,
data.
I like that. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And the one nuance there is there might not be any existing data, in which case it'll be undefined.
Yeah.
So, and then uh, both read and later we'll talk about merge functions have a final argument, which is like a tool bag of helpers.
Okay.
Um,
Like an object
since
that
it's an
has.
object,
Okay.
yeah,
Got it.
it's convenient to use destructuring syntax to
For
just grab
sure.
what you need out of it.
Yeah.
And in this case, actually, since this is going to be a made-up field that doesn't really
We
exist, we
really just
probably
need
won't end up
existing. Yeah.
needing existing. There's a helper called read field.
All right.
Yep. Um, And for simple usages of read field, great. Yeah. Um, when you're reading from the same object, you just call it with the name of the field, just a string, probably a string literal.
Is it safe to say this, like data, is that what we're reading from the field? Is that
Well, we are going to be consuming, I guess, the name field and the emoji field. So like two separate things.
okay? Oh, so we're gonna do one at a time. So like const name will be equal to a read
Yeah,
from
sure.
that field, and then
Yeah,
emoji. Okay, got it.
yeah,
So it'll be like read field. I'm just gonna do this real quick so that
sure.
we're like all set up. Cool. And so then what do we plug into read field? What do we do here?
Yeah. Just a string version of the field name.
Oh, and so because we're at this level, so it's just I think it's what is it name? Is that what it is? I don't even remember
Yeah,
now. Oh, it is name.
that's correct.
Okay. Oh, so we'll just do name, and then this is just gonna be emoji. Is it that
Yeah.
easy? And it's just gonna pull those out?
Yeah, and then read needs to return something,
Yep.
so we just
We'll just return them basically
yeah, native.
space separated. Oh, but I wanna put a space between them. So we'll do function. There we go. Still get it's so weird
Yes.
getting used to that because I got to bring my thumb over like to the right. I'll get used to it one day. If not, I'll just have to get a new keyboard. All right, cool. Right, so now we're good.
Yeah.
All right, all right.
So I guess one caveat here is we don't like automatically, and I'd like to explore, possibilities for improving this, but we don't automatically add those fields to your query. So it's on you to make sure that name and emoji are actually in the query.
Right,
But
right,
I'll
right.
show you what that means over in the app.js code.
Okay, so let's
This
go.
looks good.
All right, cool. So now we're over here, um, and instead of getting so where's our query? Here it is. So instead of this, so you were saying we want to make sure those are still in the query,
That's
but
right.
to make sure that they get pulled in, because otherwise, like, we'd be trying to build a name from something that doesn't exist. It's only on the client.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And in cases like that, read field, it definitely has like a JavaScript flavor to it.
Yeah.
It just returns undefined, which is fine. It's something that you can detect
Yep.
if you want to. But it would also return undefined for a field that like doesn't exist at all. So it's sort of uh, yeah. There's a pretty consistent usage of undefined values to mean like missing data
Got it.
within the cache. Um,
Okay.
I'll mention that again if it comes up.
Yeah. Cool. All right.
Yeah, so if we want to request that field that we just invented out of thin air,
Yeah.
can add it to the selection set beneath emoji.
It was name with. Oh wait, yeah, I did.
Or
Camel
Kemple's.
case. Yeah. Cool. All right. So now we've got that. So then, in theory, what is the use case of doing something like that? Like what we're doing right now? Um.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely just take the name property and the emoji property and concatenate them together in your React,
Yes.
render function. Yeah, that's what we were doing before. So obviously that's possible. Um, I guess a go-to example for this kind of thing is like maybe you have first name and last name, and you just want to combine them together into a
Yep.
made-up full name property, that
Or
sort of thing.
yeah, or you want to convert money to a given currency or something like that would be.
Yeah,
Can you
absolutely.
do variables on a read? Like on a
Yes.
so like I can add support for adding like a variable here.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And
So then
the
yeah.
arguments that end up being passed to that field are available through the options that are the final argument to the read function.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, so it's more for like data transformations in this case, the way we're using it right now. This is like I have data, it's in the cache, this is how I received it, but I do need to make some slight alteration to it or join it to some more
yeah,
data. And so a question came up is how does the cache know that this is on the country query, which is interesting because yeah, we're just doing query fields name with emoji.
right. Um, ooh, did we make? Yeah. Oh, this is going to be an even better example than I realized. Cool. So you're right. Great catch. Name and emoji are definitely not root level fields on the query.
Yeah.
Right. So this wouldn't have worked if we tried it. So what do we need to do instead? Well, okay, what fields can we read when we're inside of this read function? We can definitely read the country.
Yeah. So I
Um,
we could just do country, like pull that whole thing out.
um, let's see. I guess I would add another line at the very beginning of the read function
Uh-huh.
that calls read field with the string country. Yeah.
Okay. And
Okay.
now name and emoji come off of country, essentially.
That's right. Yeah. And so the cool thing that you can do with read field, um, yeah,
Is that
yeah, this will work for now. There is a nuance that I want to add
yeah.
in a second,
Yeah, yeah.
but I think this should
Should we
give us
try
some.
it? Let's just go see what happens. Let's go. Yeah, yeah. I love it.
Yeah,
All right, so we've
Seven
got it.
Nine knows what's up.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. Because we're not doing the at client
That's right.
uh, thing, so we'll fix that. But real quick, I'm just gonna do. Okay. Right. And so yeah, because we run this, it's not gonna work. Because so let's just go see what happens though. Let's watch it not work.
Yeah.
Bad request because we're trying to send this property over name with emoji on type. Um, Country failed because there's no field on that on this server, and as Revenine said, it's because we're missing a directive in our query.
That's right.
Yeah. So
Yep.
whenever you're dealing with whether it's the version 2 method or version 3 method of working with client, I guess, state or client data, you have to add the client directive.
Yeah.
It's yeah, hit it
Um,
so many times. Yeah, it's like you get yeah, you're like, oh man, why? What's happening? Oh yeah, I forgot the client directive. Yeah. So
yeah.
now,
You can even
oh
that
oh,
client directive is useful even if the field does exist on the server and you just want to force it to be read
from the client.
from the cache
Yeah,
instead.
that's
So
a good call. Yeah, that's
little known
yeah.
trick.
Yep, that's awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, so jump
I,
back. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm realizing I gave some poor advice mere minutes ago.
Uh-oh, I can't
We
wait to
are
hear
still
it.
getting Estonia back, and that's cool.
Yeah,
Um,
but not our name thing.
that's right. Yeah, I mean this is a response from the server, which is only responsible for giving us the properties that
Oh, right, because I'm
actually
previewing the
exist.
response.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So maybe we need to go back to that type policy and see what's up. Okay. Um, so uh, all of that about putting name with emoji on the query um, the that we talked about a few minutes ago.
Yeah,
I was totally wrong about that, right?
right.
Like name with emoji is an additional field for countries.
Yeah. So
Um,
it would be like this, and then there would be a
well,
fields. No?
um, so one thing to remember here is that even though GraphQL queries are typically, fairly nested, these
The
type
types
policies
are
are
at the
always
root.
totally flat, right? So,
Right. So it's
yeah,
actually like this.
right,
And its
right.
fields. Oh, yes. Oops. It
Yeah.
would help if
So
I
it,
make
it
that.
really does resemble your schema in
Oh,
that sense.
that's a lot. Yes, which is better because I was just about to be like, woof. And so then, because it's a lot of nesting, but it's not. It's only
Right.
ever
No pyramid.
two
I mean, a
levels.
little bit of a pyramid of doom, but it's not too bad.
Two levels at max. It's just long. It's like humps of doom. It's just
Yeah. little hills.
Yeah. Right. And so
Okay,
so
we
now,
don't need to. Now we should be able to just read name and emoji,
right,
like we did
exactly. So we
before.
can, yeah, we can kind of roll this back. So you say it'd be a good idea to use a client directive even on things that exist on the server. What happens if you use at client for everything?
Yeah. Um, well, yeah, that is something you can do. Um, I would say, I mean, that's going to be an adventure. If what you're really trying to do is mock out data like before it's available from the server, another option is to create a custom link that pretends to be a server. So you can go both ways.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, just like where do you want to manage that? Yeah. Okay, but now this should work because now we've moved this. But read field
That's right.
ignoring query aliases, right? I think that's a question.
Yeah, that is a deep cut, but you are correct. You can use aliases. That is like just giving a
A
new name to
name.
a field
Yeah,
to your heart's content. And but you should always pass the actual field name to read field.
got it. Cool. Okay. Hey, and we're back. And
Okay.
the cool thing is, if we go to the code, so we've got our name and our flag, but if we look at the code in app, we're using the name with emoji. So this is our
Yep.
dynamic property being returned, and
Yep.
us able to use it. That's wicked smart. That's
Looking
awesome.
good.
Yeah, it's looking great. This is cool. All right, so what should we look at
Okay.
next? Yeah, now I'm like, let's do
Well,
this.
we were talking about how a country doesn't have an ID. I mean, it could
Mm-hmm.
have, but that's not the direction this API took.
Yep.
So in cases like that, if
Yeah.
you remember when we looked at the cache data in the browser console, um, the sort of
Oh,
name and emoji data for countries, also the type name, that was all just stored directly under the field within the root query,
yeah.
which is, that works. Nothing wrong with that. However, over time, you might end up seeing the same country in multiple different forms and fashions uh, from different GraphQL requests. And one of the things the cache tries to do is sort of accumulate all of the information that you've received for a particular domain object over
Yeah.
time. And in order to do that, it needs to have a good idea of like the identity of the country object.
Yeah.
And so, if you happen to be using an ID field, that'll just sort of happen by default. But in cases where it's something other than that, you can customize the the definition of identity for this type in the type policy.
Nice.
So
We
yeah,
did have a quick question from Pillar
sure.
150, which was they have something in cache and they're reading it out from there with client. Sometimes it's not always there, and then when that happens, they would like to fetch it from the server. What do you think is the best way to, I guess, kind of handle that?
Um, so good question. If you omit the client directive, that'll let the field go through to the server, right? But if you're using a fetch policy like the default fetch policy of cache first, then it will try reading it from the cache first, and if that's good enough, then it won't have to go to the server, right? Um, yeah, uh, yeah. We'll get into the next thing about to reference in a bit.
Cool. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, but if you just have the right like fetching policy, network policy set, then it should, if it does not find it, go fetch it by itself. And that's cache first, right? Is that like the,
Yep,
yeah,
that's the default. I mean, the other options are pretty standard. There's a cache and network option. There's a network only option. There's even a cache
cache
only
only?
option,
Yeah.
and a couple of others. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually an area where we've been doing some significant re-architecting lately. It's pretty big refactoring PR
Okay.
around the interpretation of fetch policies. So I guess I should say there could be bugs,
Yeah,
and we'd love to hear about it.
yeah. There may be dragons. All right. So now, yeah,
Yeah.
we were talking about adding. So we have our country type, and we want to specify a key field for it. Right? Is that how
Yep.
this works? Is that just the
That's
property
right.
right on country? So we would just be like
That's
key
right.
fields. Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, if TypeScript
All right.
says it so, it must be so. And so now, if I'm
Yeah.
correct, it's an array, right? And we can actually
It is
designate
an array. That's
multiple
right.
key fields if we wanted to.
That's right. Yeah, you could have like name and email, and those would be taken together in that order as
Yeah.
unique
Yeah, unique.
identifier.
It's pretty interesting. So yeah, like what if you had multiple users that and the, like I don't know their profile names were the same or something, but you could like build it off of
Yeah.
more
And
information. Yeah.
there are some fancier options here. There's a key fields false option if you want to make sure
Ooh,
that the object is always just embedded within its parent instead of identified. Um,
interesting.
you can even this is like a little GraphQL selection set, so you could if you want to like reach into a nested object and use some of its fields, you
Oh,
can have the name of the parent key and then follow that with a nested array. But I don't see a good way to try that here, so I'll just have to. And you can even provide a function for key fields if your needs are not served by this static array syntax.
yeah. If it has to be
But
dynamic, yeah. That's
yeah,
cool. I was curious about the nested field. So, like after key field code, I would then put another array and then specify the keys under there.
yeah.
Is that how that works?
As I've been making up example data graphs
Yeah,
for the purposes of writing tests. One example that keeps coming up is, if you're dealing with books, they like the ISBN number is a good single identifier, but you could also have an array here that was like title and then author and then after author, um, a nested array with name in it, right? So that it would
got it.
be
Got it.
the name of the author, that
Got
sort of
it.
thing.
All right. So, Scoro had a question, which is, will the key fields automatically be added to queries when they're executed if you forgot to add them to the definition?
Um, so unfortunately, no.
Never mind. I
That would
got an
be
error, so I'll take that as a no.
yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we're on the same page. But we're also on the same page about that being like a great thing to do when it becomes possible.
Yeah.
What will happen if you define key fields is anytime a country object comes back, the cache will yell at you with a dynamic exception that the code or ID field is missing.
Got it.
So
Yeah.
that's not quite as good as just automatically doing it for you, but at least you catch it in development.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. All right, so we've got our key fields. Can I ask a question, which is, does this change the way that our cache would look? Like now that we've added a key field, if I went back and we redid it, would that change kind of the structure of how the cache will look? Should we try that
Yep,
out? All right, let's do a
sure.
new code. What was some of the other codes?
And
Italy, we had Italy
do
for
a few different.
IT. Oh, it has to be capitalized. There we go. Oh, I broke it.
Okay, well there we go.
Cool.
Ah, interesting.
Oh, because it's not in the query.
Yeah, I
We just
just
talked
talking about
about
this.
this. We just talked about this.
So, that's not the ideal experience. I agree that, well, two things that I'll say here. This whole cache policies API is designed with a future in mind where at least some of it might be auto generatable from your schema,
Oh.
right? Yeah. Okay, so that worked.
Yeah, and what's interesting is now we're dealing with a reference. So before it was basically like key fields false in a sense because there was
Yeah,
no ID, so it was
that's
just
right.
keeping the data nested under that query itself.
Yep.
Now though, we're saying no, we have an ID. This is what it is. Surface this as a top level cache item, and we're going to track this kind of item now,
Yeah,
and we're going to use that code to do it. That's wild. That's really awesome.
yeah. And if we ever, request that country with some different fields, or even the same fields with different values, the new data gets dumped into that object that
Yeah,
sort of lives on its own, without affecting the root query
that's awesome.
format.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's so cool. Cool. That's awesome. I love seeing the just like differences in the cache as we make these adjustments. It's really neat.
yeah.
I do
One
have
of one of the goals here. Well, yeah. What were
oh
you gonna
no,
say?
oh a real quick question, but I do want to hear the goals. Was just that because the name of the emoji field is being read from things out of the cache, that wouldn't be represented here. That's like I guess like it's not ephemeral, but it's like a magic field. Like it doesn't it's
Yeah,
only ever read at real time when it's requested from the data that's available in the cache.
that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is an in-memory thing. We've got some ideas about how you could persist that kind of information. So that if you reloaded the page, it wouldn't necessarily be destroyed. But
Right.
by default, it is sort of like another layer on top of the cache that is ephemeral is a good word for it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Awesome. And then you were saying so some of the goals here with like how this key field stuff.
Yeah, I guess to prepare for that future where hopefully local storage or IndexedDB async storage persistence is a first class feature of
Yeah.
Apollo client. Right now there's a Apollo link that does it, but it's definitely something we care a lot about. To prepare for that future, this data that you're seeing in the console right now is all just plain old like JSON
Yeah.
serializable data.
Yeah.
And if you ever want to grab a snapshot of it, you can call cache.extract, and that'll give you back, you know, um, an object that you could safely JSON serialize.
Oh, that's awesome. I just want to try it just because, like, YOLO.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then, so Scoro was also just commenting and said it looks like the read property can return a function, and that will work as well.
Let's see, where did you mean?
It looks like from a read function in type policies. So I would say that if looks like if instead of just returning the string, I'm guessing he was saying here you can actually return a function and it still works.
Um,
Is that right, Squirrel? Let me know in the chat. Let me know if I'm explaining that right from the read method as well, which is what I took that to
yeah,
assume. This is our read method. YOLO, we got YOLOs
yeah.
in the chat.
Well, I can tell you, you can return anything you want from the read function, but I'm pretty sure that it is just going to be treated as an object and used for its properties. So if you returned a function, I don't think it would be, called
Got it.
by the client.
Oh, but what's interesting, yeah, it wouldn't be called by the client itself, but technically you could call it because it's just going to come
Yeah,
back as what it is. And I think that's what he's getting at, which is really wild. I didn't even think of that.
yeah.
It's basically like
I
currying. You could curry those. I don't know why you would, but I'm just saying, like, you could curry those results into something else. It's
Yeah,
pretty interesting.
I'm I'm not prepared to say that like the this experience will be like totally
Yeah.
seamless,
Yeah.
but like one thing I'd love to do in the future, right, is like, when you get data back from a GraphQL server, it's just plain old JavaScript objects and arrays and primitive values.
It's the best.
But
Yeah.
oftentimes you might want to have like a country like wrapper class that sort of encapsulates that data, and that might have like some other like JavaScript methods
Yeah.
on it. And um, yeah, I mean, right now the read function applies to fields. There's not like a read function for the whole country object. But yeah, anyway, that's on our minds, as something for future work,
Cool.
for
Yeah.
whatever it's worth.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, so we've got key fields, we've got IDs, and we have countries. And so far, we've been working with individual countries. Does it make sense to maybe like start working with like a list of these countries?
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, I'm pretty sure there is a query level like root field for countries, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, and we've got Trevor in the chat, so he can just clarify everything
Yeah.
that that we've got going on. But yeah, we have continents, countries, languages. We'll
Yeah.
stick with countries. I feel like that's good. But yeah, yeah, we've got countries that take a country filter input. Here it is. Boop. Yeah, you want to try this? Should we do that?
Sure.
All right. So
Trial and error.
yeah, trial and error. So I guess first I'll just build something here so we
Yeah.
can kind of um, see what we got going on. And then what were those parameters? I missed it all. It all popped up, and then, well, is that even how you spell countries? Why does that look so weird?
COU.
Oh, that's why, because it's not how you spell countries. There we go. And then what's available to us? Filter. Do we want a filter? Does it matter?
Just the whole list. I don't know.
Yeah, let's just do the whole thing first to start. Let's just see what happens. Yeah, too much time looking at the same words, seriously. All right, let's just fire this off and see what we get. Countries.
Okay.
Nice. Look at that.
Legit. There's a lot of them.
You could filter by continent for a shorter list. Let's start with all
Okay.
countries, and then we'll add a filter, and then take it from there. Does that sound reasonable? Or you want to
Sounds
go
good.
straight into a filter? All right, cool. Oh wait, it would help if I brought the query with me. Well, we just want this part because I'm going to name it. All right. I'll just leave country for now, and then we'll just have
Yeah.
countries. Again, that looks so
Just
wrong.
use that same spelling and everything will be fine.
Yeah, it's just spell it wrong everywhere, and you're good. Oh, I can't even. Oh. All right, and then this is gonna be query countries. Oh, ah, oh no, yeah, that we will need one more
Yeah, I
little.
do need that root field, I guess.
Yep. Okay. Cool. So we have countries. We're not doing anything with it yet. Let's go flip this out. Actually, I'm just gonna
You just add
comment.
another use query, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do uh, const. Okay, so that's gonna give us that. We don't really need this stuff anymore. We'll just comment it out for now. Shaboop. Okay, so we've got that. What will change here? We don't need this right now. If there's not data or loading, yeah, that's fine. And then here, this is actually just going to become uh,
List.
UL. Yep.
All right. Yeah. Definitely unordered.
Oh yeah,
No natural ordering for
that's
countries.
it. Um, data dot countries dot map country, and what we can do, because we still have our type policy for the name with emoji field on there, so I can actually do this,
Mm-hmm.
and that
That's
will
right.
that will work. TM, and then we can say for each country. For now, we'll just do like a H2, and we'll put country name with emoji in our H2, and then maybe here we
Oh,
can also. Oh, did I miss something?
maybe instead of H2, LI list.
Oh, right.
List item.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good call. Well, let's put the li around it,
Sure.
and then like that, and then I'm going to actually add what's up with typing to, and it always adds a third. Oh, with the second tick. Yeah, it
Yeah.
happens to me. I don't know. Whenever I do the second one on the new line, it like treats it as a new one. It doesn't understand the like what are those template strings? What are they called? Template tags
Yeah.
or whatever?
Template strings.
Yeah.
I mean, the weird thing about it is like unlike other, well, I mean, it probably gets it right for quotation marks for normal strings. So I don't know. Yeah, that's weird.
And then we just got to close our fragment and we should be good to go. Save
Love
it.
fragments.
Yeah, I love fragments. They're like, oof, I don't know how I live my life without them. All right, let's go take a look. See if I blew it up. You broke it. Status code 400. Um, let's see what I did. Cannot
Just
query.
errors.
Oh, I did it again. I did
Yeah,
it
this is
again. That's
good to just
hilarious.
keep making this mistake so people
Trevor,
see it again and again.
Trevor said it works. TM. It
Yeah,
does
you got to
work.
defend that trademark.
Yeah, it does work if I actually specify the proper query. Boom. Look at that.
Bunch of countries
Countries with
centered even.
flags. Yeah, even centered for us, but our bullets are all the way over
Yeah.
here. Looks
You want to
great.
look at the cache data
I
just for
do.
fun?
I do want to look at the cache data. Oh, first I'm going to go add a key. I can't. That's just like
That's
poor, um,
right.
poor React hygiene on my part. Uh, and we'll do country.code. Cool. All right. So now we come back, and now I would love to look at the cache.
It's going to be a lot.
Whoa, look at that. I think I broke it.
Yeah, so you got
Oops.
a whole bunch of normalized countries, each
Yeah,
one of them unique.
this is
And
cool.
then somewhere there will be a root query
Yeah,
object with a whole bunch of,
it's like dying.
well,
There it
with
is.
one, yeah,
Yeah,
bunch of references.
that is so cool. And so then, yeah, this just has all the references to the individual items. Wow.
So many they had to
Chunk it up, right?
paginate it, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And Chrome is dying. Chrome is like, please stop opening these nested objects and making me render
Yeah.
this.
This
That's
bad boy
awesome.
can fit a bunch of countries.
Yeah.
So, don't worry about that, but sometimes your computer slows down when you're live streaming.
Yeah, right. That's awesome. Yeah, this is cool. This is great. Yeah, that's so wild. And I love that it's very expressive in the keys. Like it's telling
Yeah,
you the exact properties and the values that, make up that key. It makes it
yeah.
more discoverable, in my opinion.
It could be, yeah, it's definitely more like reversible. It could be shorter. We could make everything work if like we just had the value and not the key, but
Yeah,
I thought wasting a little bit of space to get better readability would be good. And if you really, really, really want to save those bytes, you could write a key fields function that
absolutely.
returns whatever you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So this is awesome. This is really cool. So now, what do we do next? Where do we go from here?
Well, let's think. We've got a computed field. We saw the at client directive. We're normalizing
Yeah.
these
Ooh.
countries.
Make var
Um,
was requested.
okay, yeah, we got to talk about Makevar.
Yeah.
What's what kind of time do we have left?
Honestly, my day's pretty open, so we have
Okay,
until
cool, me too.
you or I have to stop. I'm good to go for a while. So yeah. Yeah.
Great. Um, we will get to Makevar, which is the API for reactive variables.
Yeah.
I think one thing I'd like to do is show. Let's see. So right now we've got this countries list, and
Uh-huh.
then we also have a single country uh, root field
Yep.
that we can use to query. But the cache doesn't know that those two things are related, even though they
Oh.
definitely are related, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you want to, take advantage of the fact that you might have just requested every single country, uh, so that you don't have to send the query for
Absolutely, because we
an
already
individual
have it.
country.
We've just listed them
That's right.
all. It would be make no sense to then query for it again, like in a detail view or something, right? Like,
Yeah.
is that? Yeah. And
Yeah.
real quick, sideline, Pillar 150 just had a question, which is the key is in fact a string. It looks like an object, but that's just like a visual
That's right.
representation, so you can see what makes up the key, but it is in fact itself uh,
Yeah.
a string. Can you
Yeah.
show
And
cat? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. Well, so cache normalization. This
This is
list
it.
here. That's it. Those strings that start with country colon. Those are all IDs,
Yep.
properties in the normalized list.
Yep.
Um, yeah. And all of these little objects that contain code and type name and name and everything would just be like elements of the country's array if we had not specified the key fields for the
Yeah.
country type.
Yeah. So actually, as a fun test, so let's go back real quick because that will only take a second, and let's just remove it and rerun
Yeah.
it. Let's comment this line out. And now, if we look at the cache,
Yeah.
it's going to be completely different. See, notice we only have this one root query property,
That's right.
and it's all the countries, and then they're all going to be embedded in line. And
Yep.
so now this is just our one cache entry, which is really not what we want. And it's also like, how do you get to
Yeah.
this other stuff, right? Like, I
That's right.
mean, it's not the case that you wouldn't always, like, there will be times when maybe you do just want to keep the nested data within the list. But
Yep.
for some purposes, and especially our current ones, we want to normalize it so that we have
Yeah.
each individual item surfaced. So we
Yeah.
can reference
I
it.
would say if you're working with a list, you almost always want to make sure that the elements of the list
Get,
are normalized.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and again, so now we come back, we open this up, and it's back. We have all these root level uh, cache entries.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right. You want to go back to
Yes, I
the
do.
type policies code?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So um, we've been working inside of the type policy just for the country
Yep.
type. Um, but the fields that we've been requesting from the server, countries and country, those are root query fields, right? So now we actually do need a query type policy like we
Ah,
accidentally had at the beginning.
got it. Okay. And then a
All right,
fields here, right? Is
fields,
that
yep, yep,
cool? And then we're ready to work.
yeah. Okay, so idea, cool. My idea was we could sort of intercept the country field
Yeah.
um, in an effort to maybe reuse some data.
Yeah, to
Sorry about
return
that.
it. Yeah, no worries.
I'll be right back
Yeah.
after
Yep. You gotta love it when you get interrupted. Yeah.
okay, so that field's called country, and I guess we're gonna write a read function for it, just like we did with name with emoji.
Okay. So this is so which which field are we on? Countries or
Yeah,
country?
singular.
Country. Got it.
Yeah,
So that would be like that. And then we're gonna open that, hit that with a read, and then it's gonna be a function, and then this is gonna take existing
yeah.
and read field.
Well,
We won't need that here, right? This is different.
yeah, probably not. There's another helper called toReference. Um,
Ah, yes.
yeah,
Okay.
and so this case is a little different because there actually is a chance that we might have requested this field from the server. So there may actually be some existing data.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the pattern that I like to use here is to return existing or something else. I guess you could use double question mark since it'll be undefined if it doesn't exist. But I don't know.
Double question
I'm
mark.
yeah, I'm still working through like what the right
This?
guidance is. Yeah, that
That's
works
a
now. It's
thing?
it's like optional chaining. Yep. right.
No
But it actually
way.
will not short circuit if existing is something like false or an empty string,
Or
only if it
zero?
is null or void.
No way. Finally. So
Yeah,
you can
no,
deal
no
with
zero.
like,
Yeah, that's a better example.
yeah, wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm adding a quick marker so I can come back to that later. Yeah, I'm gonna cut that out. Little clip out of that. Yeah, that's awesome. Do you know what this is called? Optional or like
Oh boy. It is called nullish coalescing operator.
wow.
And nullish is a made up word that just means either null or undefined.
Yeah. I'm just gonna drop that
It's pretty
link in the
Googleable.
chat.
There's that.
Yeah, yeah, it's very Googleable. I just found it in 2 seconds. I just dropped it in the chat.
This is a very recent addition to the ECMAScript specification, but
Oh,
it's easy to transpile with Babel or TypeScript.
yeah.
So, it's already available.
This is amazing. Oh, this is what I've been needing like forever. Like in React, you'll have to
Yeah.
do like if instead of checking an array's length, you can't just do that because it's like we'll just output the length or like if
Yep.
yeah, if you have an actual
Yep.
number that's zero, but that's a legitimate number, Ugh.
Exactly. Zero
Oh,
is a very important number.
yeah. Meetings. Okay, well have fun with those. Yeah, hit us up when you're done. Let me know how it goes.
Right. So here.
Yeah, yeah. Let me know if it could
Yeah.
have been an
So,
email. Yeah.
um,
Oh, right. Back to the code. So here we're returning existing or. What are we going to return? What is the or here? Are we going to get
yeah.
the
Okay.
reference to the country?
Yeah, that's right. So, let's see, how do I want to approach this?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, to reference is a bit of a wild card.
Ooh. All right.
It is well, one of the things that it does is replaces the old cache redirects API. If you ever use that in Apollo
Yep.
client too,
Yep.
um, but it is a function that takes an object with a type name, and in this case, it's going to be a code.
Code. Yeah.
The primary key for countries,
Yeah.
and um, returns a reference object. So if you remember seeing those little double underscore ref, excuse me, objects in the cache,
Yeah.
it's one of those. Um,
So here,
yeah,
because we're calling to reference, and so we specify the type name.
yeah,
Boom.
double underscore. Yep,
And then
has
that
to be country.
oh yeah, I put code. Yeah, would be country, right? And then we want to
Yep, and
pass
then
the ID or the code itself.
yeah, the code. Right. So this brings up the question of where do we get that
Variables.
code,
Yeah, where does that come from?
right?
Yeah.
Well, remember when we were explicitly asking for this country field in the first query that we did,
Yeah.
we passed in the code as an argument.
Yeah, we certainly did right here. Boom. Hey, thank you
Yeah.
for the follow, Webmaster Smith. Yeah, and so yeah, so we have our code. Okay, so I'm gonna guess that we have access to this within that function.
Yes.
Yes, that's what I like to hear.
So
Okay.
another thing that you can destructure is args. Um,
Ah, nice.
I don't know. I felt it was going to be so common that it was worth shortening it. Sort of also arguments could be a keyword in JavaScript.
Yep.
You never know.
Yep. I think args is great. And is it args.code? Is that am I
That's right. Yeah.
man, that's very nice.
I guess there's a subtlety here that there's arguments and then there's variables, and in this case, the variable happens to have the same name as the argument, but variables are sort of like global for the whole query,
Yeah.
and then individual fields can like pick off whatever variables that they want to use as arguments.
Okay.
So
Yeah, yeah.
in the query itself, inside of parentheses after the field name, you'll see code colon and then like $ code. That's grabbing the variable and using it as the value for that argument.
Got
So
it.
they could be different
Right.
names. Like you could decide to
Call
call
it
your
whatever.
variable whatever you wanted. But yeah, But when they can be the same, they might as well be.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And so now we're going. So we have this country ref. Is that what we would
Yep,
return otherwise existing? Is
that's
that
right.
the?
That's
Oh,
right.
okay. Cool.
Okay.
Okay. So now in order to test this, what we would need to do, well, I mean, we don't technically need to like, test it, but like in order to show it, we're going to need this query back.
Yep.
We're going to need this back. So, and then we'll need this back. And we're going to need this back. But what I'm going to do, just to make this thing easier to find, is I'm just going to move it above the list. What's
Okay.
interesting though
Yeah, yeah,
is
yeah.
I got to make some fixes here. So I'm just going to change
Yeah.
this and say country data, um, country loading. Why not?
Yeah.
I could think of better wording, but I'm not going to right now. And then that can stay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then
Sure.
this becomes, well, that stays, that stays. Where were we? Oh, I removed it where we were displaying it. That's what happened. Okay. So, so in the case of, got a quick question. So in the case of
Yeah.
existing is undefined and ref doesn't find anything, it will then hit the server.
Um, yeah. So to reference doesn't like put anything into the cache. It's sort of optimistic in the sense that it'll give you a reference that can be used to find the normalized data if it exists, but if it's not, then everything will behave, as if that field was missing, which is kind of nice actually. It means you don't
Yeah.
have to like, check to make sure that the reference is valid in the read function before you return it.
Yeah,
Just
for
kind of
sure.
cross your fingers and hope for the best.
Okay, loading country, loading countries. Okay. Yep. Oop. Yep. That's broken. Error has already been declared. That
That is
makes
true.
sense. Boop. And now
Country error.
you're country error.
That's fun.
Yeah. Error. Oh, interesting. So let's just duplicate this. Cool. Okay. Let's clean this up a little bit. It's driving me nuts. We got our input. We've got country data, country loading, loading, country, country data, country, data loading, countries with flags. Boom. Cool. Hey, thank you for the follow, Caviar. Okay, so we've got business. It says loading
Yeah.
country, and then if I go, there's Estonia, country Estonia.
Yeah.
So what I should have done
So,
though is we should probably be on the
right.
network tab, right? And now I
That's right.
should check for another one, IT. So the one fired because that was probably just I and not IT, which was not
Yeah.
in the
Let's see
cache.
what.
Yeah, the data's null because the request was for I.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep, see, I, which makes sense. That should request. That didn't exist. But IT, which we did get the result back for, did not fire off a request. Came right from
Yeah.
the cache.
Um, I know not everybody is a like graphical debugger like enthusiast, but I love it. Like I live in Chrome DevTools, so
Yeah.
one thing that I like to do in situations like this, just to like make sure I have my bearings, is throw a debugger statement inside
Yeah,
of
let's
that
do it.
read function, so we just stop there and see what happens.
I love it. Yeah. Wrong file. That's why I can't find it. There we go.
Do you know that debugger used to just be an undefined reference, and the dev tools would catch that exception and stop there.
Are you
Anyway,
serious? I did not know
should that?
that. That's wild.
Yeah.
That's why it would stop. Wow.
Now it's more
Yeah,
baked in.
yeah. Debugger is something that I don't use a lot. Another something I have been using quite a decently amount though is breakpoints within VS Code. That's been
Oh
become
yeah, yeah, yeah.
become my thing. I really enjoy that. Okay, so now let's do. So that's paused in the debugger, and now this should fail. We should not find a country ref. Well,
That's right. Yeah, because that's
yeah,
well, I mean, we might have some data like null
yeah,
cached for that if
right,
we've done
right.
that bogus lookup before, but it's not gonna
It's not
not
gonna
gonna
have
find
anything.
anything, I
So you
think, in
see
this
it
case.
exactly. So there's nothing there. So that's fine. So then we hit play. Boop, and then boop, and then we go
Okay.
E
Thank goodness
again.
it's not a loop.
Yeah,
EE.
yeah. So
Okay.
so
So
now we've got business.
we think this is gonna work. We have never requested Estonia from the server, so there's no existing data, right? Existing is undefined.
Yeah.
Um, and it can be tricky to know just like sitting here, like whether this exists without like breaking open the cache
Yep.
data like we did before. You could go and visually scan for that. Um, however, I don't know. Maybe we just want to step over this and then see what happens after this function returns. Might get a little hairy, but we'll see how it goes.
Okay, so I stepped over once, and it seemed to have brought us back to this. Um,
Oh, that's yeah. We were just on stopped on the
oh,
previous
oh,
line.
right. Yeah, we're stopped
Yeah,
on debuggers. Yeah, so let's step over this. Boop.
yeah. So this is showing you the original code thanks to source maps.
Yeah.
The compilation is a little more, complicated than just that
So we got to keep
expression. So
stepping.
sometimes you get like multiple debugger steps on the same line.
Yep.
But once this becomes
There we
native,
go.
it'll, yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember this.
Yeah, so now we're in there. Keep stepping.
Yeah, sure. Just gonna step out of here.
I should just. Do you want me to just
Uh,
play to the, or resume? No, because we want to step over, right? I could step out too if this is like too deep.
I don't know
I don't know either.
how useful this is. This is internal code, but field value is the ref that we just returned.
Okay.
Um, and then
Let me
that will, yeah.
let, let me
I
step
don't know.
out of
This
this.
is
Let's
not
see.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. Why not?
There we go. I could probably still step out of this too. Do you want to just hit play? Is that what I should do? Just hit play.
Yeah. Let's go for it. This is not as interesting as I had hoped.
There we go. Okay, cool. But we're back here
Um,
again. So now I'm
yeah.
confused.
Not totally sure why that is,
Yeah.
but I think yeah, that'll do it. So,
Okay.
what I was hoping was that we could see how, given that that reference is valid, we end up, being able to find the the
The
name and emoji
cache,
and
right?
everything
Yeah.
in the cache. But that was a couple of steps further downstream. So,
Oh,
you know,
so if we
uh,
would have had to keep stepping
yeah,
into it essentially. Okay, gotcha.
that's yeah.
Um,
And this trick is um, super powerful, I think, because it means that like no matter how you originally request the data for a particular type, in this case country, um, you can always use toReference to sort of create a reference to that data
yeah,
just in case it might be there, right? And so you don't have to like manually write like you could imagine fetching all the countries and then I don't know having some code that goes through them all and like writes an entry for each possible country result right into the cache
yep,
so that in terms of this code the existing property for that first read function would hopefully be like defined the next
yeah.
time so we'd be able to but we don't really need that, right? Like existing kind of doesn't matter here because toReference can do all the work
So yeah,
just by sort of being optimistic and giving you the reference that you would want if you do have the data. I don't know if
Nice.
I'm explaining that well enough, but
Yeah, I think so.
it's the key that really means you can stitch together otherwise unrelated parts of your data
cache.
graph on the client.
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah, that makes sense to me. And I think like maybe to try and distill it myself and let that kind of sink in, it's that essentially because we're creating this reference or looking up to the reference and we have access to reference within a read, that theoretically within any field on any type we can get a reference to other parts of the cache that might not be necessarily related as far as like within that like path of the tree itself, right? And
Yeah,
like it's just
totally.
anything that's exposed into the cache becomes available to other fields within the cache with to reference.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's why normalization is so important,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
it would be a real chore if you had to like go
Oh,
find
yeah.
the countries field and like run through that array and like look up the code of each one of those objects. Like that would be a nightmare.
Yeah.
Maybe that's too strong of a word, but you wouldn't want to do that. Uh, and here, because countries are normalized, because they're all stored in that big flat ID list or map,
Yeah.
you can just refer directly to them.
Yeah, which is awesome. Yeah, and yeah, which is crazy, which opens up a lot of doors for you to basically do anything you need and draw any relationships that you would need to. Real quick,
Yeah.
for Cell 92, I guess this is more of a statement than a question, other than that, like, cache is awesome, but not with real time sensitive data. And, like, that's not 100% true for a couple reasons. Number one is you still want a cache, but you have the option to just prefer network at the individual query level. So if something is like real time sensitive, you can skip the cache. And maybe this is a good opportunity to talk a little bit about cache eviction, because you can also evict things out of the cache if you wanted to on a specified um,
Yeah.
time, right? Is
Um,
that true?
that is true. I think maybe just like an example in the console here
Yeah.
would work.
Yeah, let's sorry, let me clear this and let's do that. Okay. Um,
Yeah, so evict is a method of the cache object. So yeah, Apollo client a cache. I really wish we'd just called it delete, but there was an old evict method that we were trying to preserve.
okay.
Yeah, okay. So evict, there's a couple of different ways of calling it. You can evict a whole object if you know its ID. And in that case, a good way to get the ID of an object is to call cache.identify with the same kind of argument that you would pass to reference.
Oh, interesting.
Um,
Should we
yeah.
try that?
In Apollo Client 2, I feel like people found
Oops.
themselves having to like do manual string concatenation to like come up with IDs,
Yeah.
but you don't have to do that anymore. So
So then we would say we want to evict cache. Oops. Apollo client dot cache dot. What was that function? Identify.
identify.
Right. Identify, and then we would give it the type name and the code.
Yep. Yep.
We'll just do Estonia, and then I need a closing parenthesis, and I think a closing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So this will evict. If I run this, this should evict that item from the cache.
Yeah, that's right. And eviction is not always the friendliest
Huh.
thing. Um,
Yeah.
so we're stopping here again.
I forgot
Let's
the
see.
debugger was there.
Yeah, that's one drawback of debugger statements.
Yeah. Well, I'm just gonna
I
hit
guess just
play.
continue.
Yeah. Shaboopy.
Do it again.
There we go. Okay, so now
Okay.
in theory, if we go to the console,
Yeah,
it
that
should be
true
gone.
indicates that something was removed.
Yeah.
Um, so that's good. Um, if we look at the data, uh, I'm not totally sure whether it'll still be here or not. But if it is here, yep, there it is.
Oh, I went too
Um,
far.
I think there must have been another network request sort of automatically because the big
Ah,
countries query was actually incomplete.
yep.
Could be wrong about that. Yeah, so
Okay.
the client is going to try to make sure that all the data you wanted is still there, even if you sometimes evict things, which is a super useful default behavior, because often when you evict something, it's not because like you're deleting it.
Yeah,
It's because it's invalid, and you just want to make sure it gets requested from the server again. So
got it.
that may be what happened.
Yeah.
And
Um,
my guess in this case is that it refetched the whole country's list,
that would also
which
be
is not
my
ideal.
my guess.
Yeah.
Oh, it's because
Oh
it was
well.
fetched from here,
Okay. So
from
yeah,
our.
just got grabbed Estonia again.
Yeah.
Fascinating. That was from our first query,
Yep.
which is that's great.
Yeah, that's from this guy.
So yeah,
Cool.
I guess I was hoping to show it getting removed from the list, but
But I
the
think we
cache
can. I think if I
had other
get,
plans.
yeah, well, if I get rid of, I think if I take out the code for this again, like the individual country data, we could try that. We'll see what
Sure.
happens. YOLO. So now there's no country error. Country error. I like want to sing a country song now. It's hard to evict
Yeah.
Estonia. Estonia is like, we ain't having it. Country is assigned a value but never used. That's fine. I can live with that. We'll have our input, but like also who cares? All right. Is evict a new function in 3.0? I've not heard about it before. It is new.
Um, it existed on the Apollo cache abstract class before, but our implementation just threw an exception in AC2. So um, we declined to implement that.
So let's make sure I went too far. That's interesting. I don't see
Wow.
Estonia in here. I haven't cleared it yet though.
Okay.
Oh, it's not in order. I'm like looking at it like it should be in
Interesting.
alphabetical order, but it's
it's,
not.
it's like almost in alphabetical order.
Yeah, that
Maybe it's
really.
in alphabetical order by country code or something.
Oh, could be. That really threw me through a loop there. Oh, look, but we did get
Yeah.
another data request. And I think you're
Yeah.
right.
What was
It's
that?
because we're querying for
Ah,
countries.
the whole country's thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just going to be there. So, but if I were to reload, like if I were to load like it by itself or something and then evict it from somewhere else in the app, as long as that query is not still like active, that would probably remove it then,
Yeah.
right? It's because we're asking for it in a query, so it's rerunning that query.
Yeah. Yeah. One area for future improvement, I guess. When you evict something, you're just getting rid of the normalized object, right? Uh, Leaving behind any references that might have pointed to it
Ah,
from elsewhere in the cache. And so, those become dangling references, and that's not the end of the world, handled somewhat gracefully. But right now, there's not a great way to like automatically, go find all of those references and remove them. The main reason is there's some ambiguity about what it would mean to remove the reference. Like, say it's in a list, do you just like filter it out of the list, or do
right.
you replace it with null? And in other cases, like I don't know, maybe it's like a property of an object. Like, do you get rid of that property, or do you leave it there so that it still points to the right place if you end up requesting Estonia again in the
Yeah,
future, which is totally possible.
yeah,
So there's just some like
man,
application level considerations that have to go into that automatic like cleanup logic. So haven't come up with a good solution to make that really easy yet.
for sure. And it's just so funny because it's like from the surface, like if you just like, oh, install Apollo client and then do like, it's like even just from this conversation that I've had with you over the last hour or so, it's just mind-boggling like how much you don't realize like how hard cache invalidation really is. I know there's a ton of jokes
Oh,
about
sure.
it, but it's just like wow, cache invalidation is like something that is like mind-bogglingly difficult. And I don't know, to me that's just one of the things that I love, and it's like as you mentioned earlier about why you would want a client. Why do you want a GraphQL client at all? And it's just like I imagine having to build something like this for myself because eventually you get to where you want to store data and you don't want to constantly hit the API for every little bit. dear Lord, like I would never want to have to
Yeah.
deal with this. So
Yeah.
I just like to say like, thank you. Thank you.
That.
Yeah, because wow, yeah.
And I did not, start this project. I very much
Yeah,
inherited it
yeah.
a couple years ago. So,
Thank
credit
everyone.
to
Yeah,
some precursors. Yeah,
exactly. Everyone
that's
who's
how it
touched it.
goes.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But yeah, cool. All right. Is there anything else? Oh yeah, make var. Should we maybe go over reactive
Sure.
variables? I feel like that might be a good
Yeah.
place to kind of like wrap up. You know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
What can we store in a reactive variable, do you
That's a
think?
good point. So I mean, we have we want to input our um like what we're searching for. This doesn't really make sense because we only have like one page here, but like we could carry over like our search term to like another part of the app. That would be something that you
Yeah.
might use it for. Light mode or dark mode. I could throw some super quick CSS in here and we could like switch on modes or something. That would be fun.
Okay.
Whatever. I feel like the options are pretty limitless.
Yeah, that's for sure true. Very generic tool.
Yeah.
Let's see. I don't know. We could like
We could
toggle
add
the flags or
we could
something,
add a
or
filter. We could toggle the flags. We
yeah,
could
or
add a
or
filter.
change the sorting
Oh,
like
sort.
of the countries, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, sort would be
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Why not?
Yeah. Okay, let's do that.
Okay.
All right, so a couple things. I'm gonna get rid of the input. We'll just deal with the list because it's like the easiest thing to
Yeah.
manage. Okay, so we're good. We've got our list, and we want to filter. We want to sort, right? We don't want to just depend on um,
Yeah.
how it's coming back from the server. So what do we do?
Right. You can. This is gonna be interesting. You can
Oops.
uh, definitely just write some sorting code here in the React application.
If
So
yeah,
there's nothing wrong with that approach.
right.
But if we want to
I'd rather not.
really use reactive variables,
Yeah.
then I think the easiest thing here, because we're gonna send the countries field to the server, and I don't know exactly what'll happen if we start just sending additional arguments for that
Yeah.
field. I mean, if that did work, it would be kind of nice. You could just like throw a sort
Whatever.
argument onto that field,
Yeah.
and if the server just ignored it, then we would have the opportunity to like look at it in the read function. So that would be cool. But if that's not the case, if the server is going to be confused by that new argument, which is my guess, then we could just have like another made up field like sorted countries.
I like it.
Um, okay.
Yeah, yeah, let's do that. Okay, oops. So I guess we got to go to index, right? Because we're going to make a new
Yeah.
field. And
Let's get rid of
so,
that debugger.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Goodbye. Uh, okay. All right. So, and actually, that's going to be on the query, right? Would it
Yep,
be
that's right.
sorted?
I mean,
Sorted.
probably.
Yeah. So sorted countries.
Sure.
All right, and that's going to get a fields. Oh no, this
Um,
is a field. It gets a
yeah,
read.
that's right. Yeah, actually, for this case, I did want to show the little shorthand because read
Oh
functions are very
right.
common.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, if you're going to have more than just a read function, then you need an object. Um, but if all that you need for the field is a read function, then yeah, you can just do this.
At the root. Got it. I took a guess. I was like, well, that's got to be the shorthand.
Yeah, I
It's
mean, what
like,
would it be?
yeah, 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 yeah. That's so funny. And so then here we get our existing. Hey, Mirad, thank you for the follow. And then we have whatever we want to pull off of here, right?
Yep, that's right.
And we're gonna need something else, right? Because like, where does make var come from? Does that exist? Where do we get that?
Yeah. So it is a method of the in-memory cache.
Cool.
So I think given how we've written this code, the easiest way to refer to that is as client.cache.
Okay.
right? Because we did not save the cache as a variable
We
anywhere.
did not. We could have, but yeah, we
Yeah.
definitely did not. Okay, so client.cache. Oh wait, what are we doing with this again?
Oh, yeah. So this is a little suboptimal, I think. I'm still looking for ways to improve
Okay.
how this works, but
Yeah.
um, you would want to create your reactive variable at the top level of this file, like after you've created the client,
Ah, okay. So,
because it's kind of a global piece of information.
okay. All right, got it. So we actually want to take this out. So is it, but client is defined here. So we got to,
Yeah, so you got to do it below it, so
yeah,
it ends up
got
being
it.
a little bit removed.
Yeah, that's fine. And then this is like our variable name, right? Like this would be
Yeah.
sorted countries or something.
Or let's see. Yeah, even just the like the sort order, like ascending or descending or I don't know, whatever we want to call it. It's
Yeah,
like a little flag that we can toggle.
got it. Okay. I guess we could just say
So
sort order, right?
yeah, sure. Equals
Uh,
client.cache.make
make
var.
var, right? Okay. Make
Yeah.
var. What?
Oh no. Okay. Okay. I guess that worked.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think make var may not be on the Apollo cache type, but it is on the in-memory cache subtype. So
got it. Okay.
yeah, and then so reactive variables are not a new concept. We are not inventing this at all.
Right.
But generally speaking, a reactive variable is like any other variable, except that the system can observe when it gets updated, and also keep track of who cares about it, who examined it, so
Yeah.
that you can let those consumers know when there's a new value. And if you do it right, then you can sort of like treat these variables like any other variables and just have the consequences of updating them be propagated automatically for you. So lots of other reactive programming systems have something like this.
Yeah.
But to make that really easy, so that we can intercept both the reading and the updating of a reactive variable, this reactive var t type, it's
Mm-hmm.
actually a function. And when you want to read it, you call that little function with no arguments, and it'll return something of
That's
type
right.
t.
That's right.
Yeah. And if you want to update the value, then you call it with one argument, which is
The
the new
value.
value. And
Got it.
JavaScript is happy to, you know, allow both of
Allow
those,
that.
and
Yeah.
you can look at arguments.length to figure out which is which.
Yeah,
So
yeah. That's cool. So again, to recap, like if I were to call, which here it wouldn't really be anything, but if I were to call this function, this is going to return to me the current value of this reactive variable if I don't pass in an argument. But then if I
that's right.
wanted to change it and like we set it to like ascending or whatever, um, then that would actually be setting the variable as opposed
That's
to
right.
returning it. Got it.
Yeah. And somebody's asking about
Yeah.
whether this is the same as the Meteor reactive variable. Definitely inspired. If I'm remembering correctly, in Meteor, there was like a set and a get method of the reactive variable objects. So, I consider that
Close.
a superficial difference.
Yep.
Definitely very similar in purpose.
Yeah, very cool. Okay. So we've got our sort order. So what's interesting is like we're in index, but we want to use this in app. But I don't think we
Sure.
want to like can you is cyclical imports is that like okay? Like cuz
Oh,
we're
yeah.
importing app
I
and
mean,
then we can import from index into app?
that's right. Yep.
Yeah.
That's totally fine. The important thing there is that we're not going to be using sort order like immediately at the top level of the module. So the circular dependencies will all be wired up by the time that we actually use this
Got it. Got
outside
it.
of this module.
Yeah, got it. That makes sense. So I do want to export it though, right? And then you're
Yeah, I
just
think
saying
so.
because where we call it is going to be within a React component that it won't
Yeah.
matter. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I guess another option could be to somehow like stash it on your React context so that it's available to your components, but
Right. But
I
for our
I don't
purposes,
actually know off the top of my head how to
yeah.
do that.
Yeah. I mean, I do, but we don't. I don't think it's worth like
Yeah.
setting up
Okay.
context to do all of that. But yeah, we could do that. It's interesting because like it's just slight derailment. But if we also were to take the client and like we just went through and did everything in line, if we put the client out into its own like file, you know what I mean, and like exported that,
Yeah.
exported any of the variables with it, we could then include them anywhere in React components, custom hooks, whatever we wanted to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I really like about reactive variables. It's just like however you want to pass that little function around,
Yeah.
export it, import it, whoever
Yeah.
has access to it can use it.
Yeah. It's really cool. Yeah. And it allows you to use whichever patterns you're using in your projects already, right? It's like
Yeah.
very decoupled from a framework, so which means like it doesn't matter if you're in Vue or React or Angular, should be able to work it into
Yeah.
your workflow. Cool. All
Yeah. In
right.
fact, I mean, it works pretty good with React, but like one of the differentiators of other frameworks like Vue is they have like a very thoughtful reactivity story.
Yep.
And I haven't tried this yet, but I think it should be like pretty straightforward to um, make reactive variables work in tandem with that story,
That's cool. That's
or
awesome.
in Svelte or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so let's see. We're not using state, and I don't think we are going to need it because we're going to use our state is now going to be a reactive variable.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we could say import sort order from. Uh, is that at the same level? Yeah.
Dot index, yeah.
Cool. So now we've got that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we could just be like const, and maybe I should set a default for it, but oh wait, no, const or direction I'll say
Okay.
equals sort order. Ugh, is this right? Is that
Yep, that's right.
okay? And
And
then
it's just going to give you whatever the current value is. So there's no, it's like a variable.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's
I
just
don't
like a
maybe
variable,
that's
so it's
not.
just going to give us, hey, here's what it is. Currently, it's nothing. It would be undefined. But if I
Yeah. You
go
can
and
pass in an initial
that's what
value
I
here.
thought, yeah. And what?
One
Go ahead.
A good reason to use an initial value is that it helps TypeScript automatically guess what that type T is supposed to be
Yeah,
so that you can take advantage of that elsewhere.
got it.
That type will just follow the sort order variable around. So, you know, you don't have to like
Yeah.
cast to T or whatever.
Okay. So we've got so that's got a default value. We've got it here, and then so how will we make use of this uh, variable?
Yeah. So we're probably going to consume that in the read function in the other file. So it's possible that we don't need to
Even
read it
include it here?
here. Yeah, if we wanted to update it here, we could call it with a new value.
Got it.
Um,
Got it.
yeah,
And maybe we'll leave it. We'll leave the import because like we could add like a toggle or something to flip the
yeah,
direction. Okay. So we'll go back here and we're back into I guess our countries.
yeah. Oh, we wanted to call it sorted countries
Thank
just to
you.
be safe.
Okay. Cool.
Yep. Okay. So, often I don't want to, put this forward as like the way that you should necessarily design this exact
Yeah, yeah.
non-existent feature, right?
Yeah.
Often when you're working with GraphQL, you want to take input from like the arguments for the field. So that would, come through the
The
args
args.
property of the object, right?
Yep.
But we don't actually need that here, unless we did, I don't know, want to support that API as well, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
we are going to be reading from the sort order variable, which is just like in the scope of the module. So
Yeah. So I think I was going with direction. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Either way, we've
yeah,
got it.
works.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so one thing we do need from the object is read field, so we can read the countries field.
Ah, yeah. So is it safe to say countries equals read field, and then this is going to get type name.
Oh,
Oh
you're
wait,
thinking of
this would be
two reference.
different.
Yeah,
Yep,
this is just the name of the field countries.
yep. Which would be that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I would say, just using my intuition, there's a reasonable chance that that country's data, that list, will not exist yet. So one thing we could do here is, yeah, default it to an empty array, just so that we always get an array one way or another.
Yeah, that should work, right? Read fields
Yeah.
or yeah. Okay, cool.
Okay. So this is gonna get fun.
Yeah.
Well, at least for me. Uh, so we want to, I think, return that country's array, but call
Sort.
the sort method on the array with a custom sort function, which is, yeah,
Oh, I hate writing JavaScript
AB, and
sort
then it
functions. Yeah.
returns, it's like a trinary
Yeah, yeah, it's
result,
one,
negative or
zero,
positive.
or negative one, right? Yeah. And so, but we want to sort on ascending or whatever the sort direction is. So I don't even
Yeah.
know how to.
Yeah. I don't know. We can be a little sloppy here, just like if
I'm gonna do.
direction
Yeah. Yep.
equals
Yep.
one thing.
Uh, I did single equals. So we had. We'll start with descending because that was what I had in there, and then we can say
Yeah.
else because if it's not descending, it's ascending, right? I think that's
Why not? Yeah.
works for me. So then if it's descending, if A is less than B or greater than B, I don't
Man, you got
know.
me.
I don't know.
It's the worst thing about this API.
Yeah. We'll just go with
Negative
this.
one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think for descending it goes the other way. So if it's less, it would be a one, and ascending, it's a
Okay.
negative one.
Yeah.
Um,
We'll just make sure it does something different in both
on the
cases
other,
and
yeah, yep,
adjust if necessary.
exactly.
Trend zero. Yeah.
And so then we can just say, pop that into there and reverse these,
I guess. Yeah.
and it should do it.
YOLO.
YOLO. Can we get some YOLOs in the chat? Oh my gosh. Okay, I'll take it.
Okay. So, um, the interesting thing here is that A and B are going to be reference
Objects.
objects.
Yeah.
So I think JavaScript might, do something uh, for the less than, greater than, but it might just like
Be
always be
wrong.
false.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what
Me either. I
kind of
don't know what it will
consequences
do.
that's going to have.
Yeah. So we need to
But
get
we
to
can
the
fix that.
properties, right? Yeah, like we can within here, can't we? Can we do some magic here?
Yeah, and for better or worse, it is going to be a little bit magical.
Ooh, okay. Hit me with it.
So yeah, that read field helper
Mm-hmm.
um, can take additional arguments. Specifically, you can pass a reference as the second argument,
Ah,
or just a normal object, but it also works with references.
yeah.
So uh, we want to read nested fields. I guess the name, like, so read field with name and then so a name or something, and then
Okay,
b name.
got it. So it's going to be const read field, and then the field that we want to read is going to be the name, and then we're
Yeah,
going to give it a reference. Oh, it can just be a
that's right.
or wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. But we have to call it something, so we'll call that a country or a name. That's what you said, right?
yeah,
A
sure.
name.
Yeah,
Is
works.
that? We'll duplicate it for a B name. Refield name from B. This is cool. This is really cool.
Yeah,
Oops. Okay. And so now we do that, and now this becomes wherever we have a. Will I be able to cleanly? Yeah, cool. D name, and then we
wow.
have yeah. Luckily there was no other
Elite
B's
VS
and
Code
A's used.
skills.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Name. Okay, cool. And Boom.
All right.
All right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it would be cool if you could overload the less than greater than operators for arbitrary objects in JavaScript, maybe one day. But
Maybe.
yeah.
Yeah. But either way, this looks good. It looks good to me. Okay. So we should test this,
Okay.
right? And like see if we get sorted countries.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Right. That would be the thing.
yeah. So here, really, we just go like this. Should be it.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, this is. I think we may need some duplication in that query just to make sure that we
Get what
are
we need.
also requesting the countries. And unfortunately,
Oh, I see.
I mean, they don't have to have exactly the same properties in the query, but we do need to,
We,
have at least, I guess,
the name,
the
right?
name and the code. Yeah.
Oh, and this needs at client, right?
Yeah, that's right. That may work, putting it there. I think
Oh, wait.
also putting it right after sorted countries is
That's the, yeah,
how
oops.
I've usually seen
Yeah.
it.
Nope, yep, that's where it should be. I don't know why I put it at the end.
Yeah. And then technically everything in that selection set is going to come from the client. So you could remove the at client from the name
From
of the
this
emoji
one.
there, but
Yeah,
you don't have to. So yeah,
gotcha.
up to you.
This is good. Yeah, this is fine. And then we'll pull this to make sure that it's in the cache. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's just go see what we get. Oh,
All
cannot read
right.
property 0 of object array. Oh, this is for me. So countries. It's saying I can't call sort on countries, I think.
Okay. This read field, sorted
Wait,
countries.
I don't want to.
Huh.
Should I console log countries?
Yeah, I don't know. I would set a debugger breakpoint or
Oh, we could
something.
do that. Yeah, let's do that. All right.
Okay. So
We'll
it's
hit
empty.
play. Yeah, we'll hit play.
Might be okay.
Okay.
Okay, still empty.
Now it should have something. Here we
Now we
go.
got some countries. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So that makes sense.
that's all good.
It's all
You
our
could set
refs.
like a click in the left column to like set a breakpoint in inside of the sort function and
Yeah, got
hopefully
that. Yeah, let's see what happens.
continue to there.
Oh, so it fails before
Oh,
there. That's what's blowing my
how?
mind.
What?
Yeah, because that's an
Okay. Oh
array.
my goodness. Oh my goodness.
You know what it is?
Okay, so yeah. Um, Unfortunately, uh, the array.prototype.sort method is destructive. So it actually modifies.
So we're not returning
Uh,
it.
well, not only does it modify countries, it also returns countries, right? So it sort of, in some cases, like this should have worked. However, that countries data that we read is immutable. It's frozen in development,
Oh, so we have to.
right?
Yep.
So yeah, at some point the sort function is trying to like reassign some positions within the
Yep.
array, and
And
at
it's like,
that point
nope.
it's failing. Yeah, so
Got it.
that's can't assign to read only property 0. It must have been trying to like put something at the 0th position.
Can we do this? I wonder. Can we just say, can we unfreeze it?
uh if only. That
That
will
won't
work.
work.
Yeah,
That will
that'll
work?
work.
Okay. Yeah.
um let's see. If it's undefined, though, that might be weird.
We'll see.
I
I
would
think
I
it
would
might
wrap the
work.
whole. Okay, yeah,
We'll see.
we'll see.
Oh, I see. Just wrap the spread around the whole
Yeah,
check. Okay,
yeah.
we'll see. If it fails, that's what I'll do. Yeah, read field is not a function. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, whatever I
Gotcha.
did, that's definitely not working. Oh, because you would have to call this anyway. You can't just like do this, what I'm doing here. So what it actually needs to be is this needs to come off of here. This, oops, what did I just do? Okay. This goes
Yeah.
away. What it needs to be
Sure.
is dot, 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 boom,
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
boom, and then that goes into an
Yep.
array, right?
Yep. And that, just makes an unfrozen shallow copy
Yep.
of the array.
Yeah. Let's see if that worked. Ayo. So now we're in
Okay. I
there,
guess continue until it has all 250 countries.
which should be now.
Um,
Nope. Next one.
okay.
There we go. Now we've got countries. Now we hit play.
Yeah.
We should go up. There we go. It's weird that it didn't
Okay.
respect my breakpoint, but whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, but
That is also now
this
now they appear to be
sorted, right?
sorted
Kind
by the
of.
first letter. Yeah.
But we have ARAN, so I'm very confused what's happening there. But they are sorted by the first letter.
Yeah. Can you find Estonia?
Oh, are we sorting by? Oh yeah, Estonia. Let's see.
Hmm.
Estonia.
Mm,
I'm really
still got
confused
that.
about this.
Oh, man,
Some of them are in order. What are we
that is
sorting on?
cooked.
The name? Algeria. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. What
Yeah,
happened
you're right.
there? But what I want to see
Okay.
is let's check something. I just want to flip the type and see if we end up with something else.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity. And this is probably more of me not understanding sort. I'm probably doing this incorrectly.
Yeah.
Oh, let me take these out.
Okay. Got the
Uh,
right direction at least. Okay,
yeah,
but it
yeah.
didn't
But
didn't
no,
seem
it's
to
the
change
same.
anything.
It's the same. Seems to be the same order.
So
Um,
weird.
are does it also return? Does it return the original array or the updated if it's destructive?
It has to be the updated. So I'm not.
Yeah, right. Because that's the whole point of sort.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely returns the updated array. No, it doesn't.
Well, I mean, because it modifies the objects, the array, you don't have to pay attention to
Right,
the
right.
return value, but yeah.
Yeah, that's just weird. Just, this is just for me. Like this is just fun because I've
Yeah.
never done this. Yeah, look at that. There it is.
Okay.
So it does 100% return
Oh,
that.
there's an idea. If you render country list not sorted.
Oh,
Oh, that's that's a good point. I think we are still rendering
calling
just
country,
countries,
which
not
is
sorted
still on
countries.
it. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, thank you, Cell92.
Yep. Oh, I'm gonna go remove that real quick. I don't think we need that
Yeah,
right
it
now
is
anyway.
annoying.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually super useful, but then when you don't want it, it's super annoying.
That's right.
Oh yeah, that was still there. Oh, okay.
Okay. I happen to know that
Oh, okay.
Afghanistan is the first country, so
Yeah. This
alphabetically.
looks a lot better. There we go. And so that order
Yeah.
should be ascending. So now let's go try descending.
Estonia is right between Eritrea and Ethiopia. Looks good.
Yeah, yep. All right. So now let's try descending.
Yeah.
And which
All
is it's
right.
just a special character. So that's why that's
Yeah.
there. But
And
yeah, yeah, we've got it. Now I think
okay.
this I don't know if this is actually ascending or descending, but it's flipping and that's all that matters. I can never remember if ascending is like first or last. First to last or
You,
last to first. Yeah,
I feel the same way. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. But it works.
So one more thing to do here.
Yeah.
Obviously you can just have a variable. It's good to have variables when you might want to change something. But we're not changing it now.
Anywhere, yeah.
So
Thank you,
yeah.
Trevor.
Okay.
Descending is
Yeah.
highest to
Cool.
lowest. Yeah. So I had it right.
Um, what I would propose, since we're not building a real application, is just in our React render function,
Yep.
like do a set timeout
Yeah, just use effect
and
and just flip it.
flip it.
I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. That's a great idea. Use effect, and then I'm in the wrong file, so let's Command Z
Gotta
that.
import it, I guess.
Yeah, well, I was just in the wrong
Well,
file.
yeah,
We want to do
either way.
that here. Oh, I guess we could have done it in either one. Oh, and then we would have. I'm already importing it, so yeah, we'll do it from here. But you're
Okay.
right. Duh. The other one was a React component. Could have just done it there as well. Um, okay, so we've got use effect. We've got sort order. So we could say we'll set a timeout, and then for this we'll do sort order. And I think I have it set to descending now, so we'll set it to ascending. And we'll give that like 3 seconds so that we have enough time
Okay.
to see it. Maybe I'll even just do 5 seconds just to like be sure.
Yeah. Do you want to double check it's descending to begin with, or
Yeah,
not sure?
yeah, I will absolutely. Yep. So we've got descending.
Okay. Cool. Cool.
So this looks good. This will only run once. That should be all that we need to happen. So Command S, tab, we're in the browser, loading countries, it's
Five
reversed.
seconds.
Yep, and then after a couple seconds, boom, flipped.
Boom. Yeah. Yeah. So I
That's
mean, the
cool.
TLDR there is you can update reactive variables whenever you want to.
That's real
And if
cool.
they are used in a read function, then any query that involved, you know, that field will get re-rendered
Wow.
as a consequence of updating the reactive variable.
Yeah.
So
So
that's
the
the magic.
yeah, that is awesome. So Revenant asks, so it seems like it's updating the cache, which no, because we wrote a read function, so we're not
Yeah.
actually changing the cache's values. What we're doing is adding a thin layer on top of that to do things like these data transformations and stuff like that. And that
Yeah.
so what we're doing is we're saying give me the countries out of the cache. That's what that read field countries does right here. So we get all of the countries. That's what's stored in the cache, which would just be our default array of references, and it would be in whatever order came back from the server. It's just like as is. And then we're saying,
Yeah.
oh, we're going to intercept that with our new sorted countries field and instead allow you to sort that. Yeah. Is that? Yeah.
Yeah. So this is like a new take on um, local state. Somebody mentioned this earlier in the chat. In Apollo Client 2, we introduced, well, we brought the at client directive into Apollo Client Core. It used to be part of Apollo Link State, which was
Yeah.
a link that did local state.
Yep.
And you were supposed to like write fields that don't really exist in your schema like into the cache, and then if you would consume it with a query, but then when you wanted to update it, you had to do a whole like write query or write fragment just to update that local state.
Yeah.
So the main thing that we've done here is made it a whole lot easier to update local state because you're just calling a
Absolutely.
function.
Yeah, this is so much. It's like, and also, yeah, it's much easier. I'm flabbergasted by the fact that whenever you use this in a read function, all those queries will automatically update. That is just so cool. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, that's amazing. So like, if we were using these sorted countries anywhere else in the app and then change the sort order, they would all update.
that's right.
That is so cool.
Yep.
Which
Yeah, and
means,
there's a whole lot else to talk about here, but that
yeah,
that is the
yeah,
headline
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's so much that you could do. Yeah. But yeah, and which is wild because you can have like essentially these global kind of variables. You could even isolate your variable usage to like part of the graph essentially, like your cache. Like it's cool. Like you could have your settings and some global variables.
Yeah.
And then yeah, that's
Yeah.
really
I mean,
cool.
there's all different kinds of local state, really. It's not just one thing.
No, yeah,
Um, so one thing we want to do is have a React hook for people who are using React that will give you a reactive variable, so that you don't have to, call make var yourself. It'll just, you'll get it the same way that you get state or,
yeah,
what have you. Um, and the thing that would be really cool about that is that then that reactive variable could be scoped to that component, right? So it's not global anymore. It's actually like a piece of state that's associated with a particular component
yeah,
instance on the page, So when that component updates its own reactive variable, it'll trigger the re-render, sort of like calling set state, but won't necessarily affect anyone else who wasn't consuming that particular local reactive variable.
yeah, for sure. So I guess the question is why? How is it different from like using state and filter? I think like, are you saying like how is it different than using React state per se and just kind of like doing it there? If that is what you're asking, or do you mean like client state with Apollo? Yeah, so React. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a couple differences just for me off the top of my head. One is which is like reactive variables work with the Apollo um, uh, cache. And so, in other words, like
Right.
you can't recreate what we just did using just state. You would have to implement that in multiple places or create the custom hook and do it. In this scenario, we're doing it in the type policies. It's built into essentially how the Apollo client is going to behave. And so any queries that rely on those types will just get that for free essentially. Like they'll just get those updates across everywhere because it's a new behavior for the cache essentially.
Yeah. And yeah, so I mean, I think the implementation of the used reactive variable hook would be pretty straightforward. It would just need to use context to get the Apollo client instance from the React context, and then
Yeah.
it would call make var under the hood and store it in a way that it could give you back the same variable each time you render the component. And I think that might be all there is to it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, but not to say that yeah, like you couldn't do some if you really wanted to, you could do it yourself in React, but why? Yeah, if you don't have to.
Yeah.
Essentially. Yeah.
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 Well, I don't know.
Cool.
That's a whole bunch of features that we just ran through.
Yeah, I think that's good. I definitely think it's like a good pausing point on the features. We do have like some time. I mean, I'm not in it. So if you wanted to maybe take a few minutes, I know in the beginning we talked about talking about kind of the future of Apollo Client, which
Oh,
I'm,
sure, sure.
I'm
Yeah.
always interested to hear about. And then if there was just anything else that you had that you wanted to bring up, like, yeah, I mean, floor is yours pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks for any ideas for AC4. Yeah. Oh man. Have you got another hour? Um,
I mean,
so
I do.
yeah, one important note before we just jump right into like the future
Yeah.
is, these are some of them are like pretty sort of power usery APIs, right? And um, even if your documentation is great and ours is not there yet, still have a lot of writing to do. Um, you can't expect people to internalize this stuff and figure out like actual best practices for using it overnight. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, one of the things that I'm looking forward to after the release is like really doubling down on, making sure we get content out there that goes through some examples of these features one by one, and like shows how they are actually useful for real applications, and uh, all that, improving the documentation with feedback from people who are actually using this stuff in production. Um, there needs to be a period of just kind of letting these features bake and deciding which ones of them were really good ideas and which ones were
Yeah.
maybe could have been different, could have been better. So that's sort of like the background to the aftermath of Apollo Client 3 is just we need to make sure that all of these things really make sense and work well together.
For sure.
Um, but if we can get some good reassurance about things like read and merge functions and reactive variables. Um, One thing that I definitely imagine we might do in Apollo Client 4, because this would be a breaking change, is to deprecate and remove the local state API,
Yeah.
right? The resolvers that you may have written in Apollo Client 2. That all still works, and it will work in Apollo Client 3. We're not removing it because we know people have built some serious stuff on top of local state and resolvers,
Yep.
and we just the list of migration steps is already like you're gonna spend some quality time with that. So you know, taking away a whole feature set at the same time so that
It's
you
a
can't
lot.
even
Yeah,
use
that's a
Apollo Client
lot.
3 without migrating off of local state. That's too much, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to being able to deprecate that, just because it's a different code path that looks a lot like some of the newer code, but it's still different. And it's also just if we can fully replace local state, and that's the hope, then we could shave like more than a kilobyte of gzipped bundle size by removing local state from the bundle,
Yeah.
which maybe not everyone cares a whole lot about bundle size, but like that's a pretty big deal in terms of bundle size optimization.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, just having like one main API for dealing with local state with Apollo Client would be a win, instead of having two APIs that sort of overlap a little bit.
For sure. Yeah, that
Um,
makes a lot of sense.
yeah. So I don't know. I would put that in the like letting the API bake, and like when we're happy with it, talk to all the developers who are, well, all is maybe optimistic, but a representative sample of developers who have successfully migrated from local state to cache policies, then we should be able to reap some savings there, and simplify our documentation, all that good
Nice.
stuff.
Yeah.
And just because that's removing a feature, that would definitely be Apollo Client 4, but instead of it being like 6 months out, it might be a couple of months after AC3 is released.
So,
Um, yeah.
oh yeah, sorry. A couple things that popped up in the chat. One of them, which is local resolvers allow async. Does the read function support async?
That's a great question. That is one of the differences right now. It it won't work to return a promise from a read function the way that you would hope right now. Um, However, there is a pattern that you can use that in fact involves reactive variables. So
Okay.
sort of the way use state works with async code in React, where you don't get a
You don't.
real
Yeah.
state value the first time, but then when you re-render, you do get the value. It would be a little like that.
Ah,
The first time
that makes
you might
sense.
return undefined, or some default value from the read function.
Yep.
And then, when your promise resolves, you can just manually call the reactive variable function to set the new value, and that'll trigger the
The
re-rendering.
queries. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So it's not as, I don't know, like typical JavaScript style as using a promise or using an async function for the read function. But if we had done that, then all of the methods for interacting with the cache, like read
Also
query,
have to
write
be
query,
async.
they would
Yeah.
have to become async, and then that actually complicates a bunch of stuff, especially when you're using Apollo Client with React, because there are times when React needs to be able to get the current data right now with
Yep.
no delay, right? You can't
Yeah.
always be throwing promises. So um,
Not until
yeah, that's
suspense, anyway.
right. That's the story for async read functions, and like I think it will work. I also think there may be some like helper function jazz that we could use to
Yeah.
wrap that pattern up with a bow. Um, but that's one of the things we need to just kind of find out empirically if people
Right.
are okay with that pattern. Yeah.
Cool.
Um, while I'm here, this, you know, this may seem like a super esoteric bit, but I think it's actually like pretty elegant. Um, Another one of the things that you can get off of the options object in the read function. We didn't talk about merge functions, but it's also
Oh,
there.
right,
That
merge.
yeah, there's this property called options.storage, and it's just an empty object that is uh, local to that field, and that field only within that object, and it's private. And if you need to preserve state across
Oh,
multiple
no
calls
way.
to the read function, you just stash stuff there, and it'll be there the next time. Um, so that's one way that you could, like, if you decided that sorting 250 countries was, so
Yeah.
expensive that you wanted to cache it, you
Yeah,
could stick
yeah.
it on the storage object and use that instead the next time.
That's really
So
cool and clever. It's like
yeah,
a little mini key value store at the field
that's right.
level.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
You could put,
genius.
reactive variables that you've previously created there, so it's pretty flexible. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a good idea to like work yourself into a corner where you need that and then realize that it's available. But
Other
maybe if
than,
I mention it now, you'll
yeah,
you'll
yeah.
remember it in the future.
Yeah, exactly. Don't dive in and just start slapping everything in storage, folks. Like it's not another storage.
Right.
I mean it
Yeah.
is, but yeah, that's funny.
Um, yeah, so that's fun. I don't know. There's a lot of storytelling that's going to go into this. People are going to be like, "Well, I tried it and it was okay, but like, I don't know, I had this problem," and then we'll be like, "Hey, guess what? There's a feature
Yeah.
that we never told you about."
Yeah, yeah.
So that whole process just needs to happen.
Yep.
Um, but looking into the more distant future, a couple of things are really exciting to me. I Meteor Development Group and doing business as Apollo, the company that we work for,
Yeah.
is a member of TC39, which is the JavaScript Standards Committee. So I'm our delegate. I go to those committee meetings, and there's been a proposal. It's at, I want to say, stage one right now, by Rick Button and Robin Ricard. Robin Ricard is actually a once upon a time Apollo contributor,
Hmm.
um, for record and tuple types. And these are very similar
Wow.
to objects and
Hmm.
arrays, records being objects and tuples being arrays.
Yep.
But they are immutable, and they have this really cool property that if you like build up a tuple with exactly the same elements as a tuple that you previously built, those two objects
Become
will
one,
be
right?
triple equals to each other.
Yeah.
They'll just
Yeah.
be the same object, right?
Yeah.
So that means you can like um, do a lot of memoization. You could use the tuple itself as
Yep.
like a key in a map or an element in a set.
Oh,
Um, you could,
it's really
your
crazy.
your React component could figure out that it's getting like exactly the same data in like a deep sense, but
Yep.
all it has to do is check triple equals, like an
That is
instantaneous
wild.
check.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's actually that the record and tuple types, given that that is sufficient to represent GraphQL result data, right? Like GraphQL result data is just like JSON
Yeah.
serializable objects and lists and primitive values. Um, I think it would make a whole lot of sense if the result objects that Apollo client gives your application were not just plain old JavaScript objects, but a mixture of records and tuples, right? Because
Yeah.
that we already try to give you back triple equals the same data when things haven't
When
changed,
possible.
but
Yeah.
this would just kind of guarantee it, even if like the sources of the data were very different, as long as the final form ended up being the same.
Yeah.
So that's cool all by itself. But I think we could even change the way that the GQL template tag parser works so that GraphQL queries could also be represented in the same way, right? So if you have two queries that happen to like have some overlap, like they have some nested selection set
Oh,
down inside of them that's just
interesting.
like same as in some other
Yeah.
query,
Yeah.
those fragments of those two queries will
Be the same
work exactly the
object.
same way, right?
Yeah.
And we'll be able to like do the caching that we do based on that. One of the consequences in both cases is that the records and tuples are always completely immutable. Um, so, you can't like
Yep.
push new things onto a tuple. You'd have to create a new tuple. But
Yep.
we're already, trying to enforce that in various ways. So
Yeah.
I think that's actually a small step. And the main thing we're waiting on is just for those proposals to get a little further through the TC39 proposal system, and also for tools like TypeScript and Babel to
To
provide
support them. Yeah.
polyfills.
Yep.
But once that happens, I really want to write a blog post about that.
That would be
Um,
awesome.
yeah. So yeah, I think we could do that even before we have native support for records and tuples. It would just, we'd have to recommend a polyfill. Um, And another thing that I'm really excited about is the idea of putting Apollo client. This you wouldn't be forced to do this, but like we would make it as easy as possible to put Apollo client in a web worker, right? So
Oh,
that
yeah.
anything and everything it does that might be computationally intensive
Happens off the
could just
main
happen
thread.
in
Yeah.
parallel off the main thread, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think the biggest issue with that right now is that the only way that web workers can communicate with each other is through the post message API. And if you post message always clones the stuff you pass it, which is like
Yeah.
the safe thing to do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in our case, it's actually sort of unfortunate because if Apollo client tries to report the same results, like triple equals the same, to the client at multiple different times, we really want the object that corresponds to that on the main thread to be the same object
Yeah. Yeah. Which
in all
is,
cases, right? We want
yeah.
it to be sort of stable. And that's a solvable problem. You just have to sort of abuse post message in a special way. But
Yep.
I think as soon as we have a
Is
story
that
for
like
that,
buffering? Is what you're doing? Converting it to buffers, or how would you do that across post message?
you could do that. You definitely you sort of have to come up with like a I don't know a description language for the
Yeah.
objects that you're sending forth, and like
Yeah.
I don't know, give each one an ID or something,
Yeah.
um, and then talk about the IDs instead of like having to re clone the object.
That's
But I
smart.
think that's all
Yeah.
doable. And then, oh man, like if most of Apollo client
Ran
only
on a web
loaded in a
worker?
web worker and
Oh.
just was like not part of your bundle at all, like that's that's immediately more impactful than any amount of like tree shaking or like bundle size optimization that we could do on our side. So
Absolutely. Yeah, that'd be
really
wild.
exciting.
That's a lot of really
Yeah.
cool things. Real quick, before we get into more future stuff, there's just a couple things in chat, and I just want to make sure we get to them
Cool.
before we wrap up. So one of them, real quick, is there any plans for a new API instead of modify, or will Apollo is Apollo looking to more manage local state in the future? I think what the question here is like, will either something replace modify, or is there plans in the future to make, like, I guess, access to the cache more available than read and write query? Correct me if I'm wrong, Revenine, but that's the kind of the sense that I'm getting. um, but yeah.
Yeah. Um, Okay, so we mentioned earlier that there was some backstory here. The I feel like Apollo Client 3 would have been released already if we had not decided to add a new method called cache.modify. And we've had a bunch of discussions about it, and one of our strengths as a company is that we care a lot about developer experience and education, um, and the explainability of our APIs, and just like in a number of different ways, we felt like this low level cache.modify method was expecting like too much detailed knowledge of the internal representation of data in the cache, which makes it really hard to like teach it to someone in a way that like solves a problem early on. Maybe once they are an
Very
expert with Apollo
advanced.
client, it could be
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, cache.modify. But it just has to wait until you've absorbed a whole lot of other information. And that's not a good look for any API. But that said, it's been part of the betas for about 3 months, and people have,
Yeah.
decided to switch to Apollo Client 3 just to, even though it's still in beta, just to use that API. So, um, you know, uh, I tried not realizing that to remove it last week, and have gotten some good feedback from the
Yeah.
community, from people who were using it productively. And so, to answer your question, long story short, there will definitely be a replacement. It might even be called cache.modify. My hope is that it would it would work like the data that you would be modifying would look like GraphQL result data rather than internal cache data. I think that
Yeah.
would just make a lot of things simpler. But if we go that route, then I think you'd probably have to pass in a query or a fragment to cache.modify, but it would still be more convenient than calling read query and then write query, because it would just take care of all of that
On one.
at once for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm hopeful, but still very much like at the drawing board when it comes
Yeah.
to the replacement. So
Well, that was good. It was yeah, thank you for that. It's much appreciated. And then one last question, which I think is on everyone's mind, is when's AC3 gonna drop?
um, it's a great question. Uh, 6 months ago when I gave my talk at GraphQL Summit about it, I thought it would be done by the end of the year. That's when we went into beta, so we've been in beta for a while. And speaking candidly, when your software is in beta and the people who are using it because they decided they were okay with that, you know, some things are relaxed, in terms of semantic versioning and the you know okayness of breaking changes. And from
Yeah.
the implementation side, that is it's tempting to just like stay there. But obviously, as a
Safe. Yeah.
professional, and I know that we have to finally release it at some point. I really wanted this to be a release where we made some dramatic improvements to the APIs and the predictability and reliability of the software. We've
Yeah.
had a bunch of different hands on Apollo client over the years, and it kind of has that feeling of something that has accumulated features over time and not been, I don't know, dramatically reconsidered yet. So this is a moment for that, and it's just like it's very tempting to really take advantage of that. I hope that AC3 is even if you use it in the beta is much more usable and powerful than AC2.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the people who make decisions about um, our deadlines and so forth have begun to grumble about how long it's been. One of our founders is like, "What about when are we actually going to
Yeah.
release
When's
it?"
the release?
So yeah, it's today is May 20th. I want to have a release candidate by the end of the month, and that is an invitation to only fixing bugs, and otherwise, once we're confident there's no showstoppers,
Yep.
we will release it. So yeah, I really do apologize that it's sort of a rolling timeline and that it's been so long, but I hope that
It's
it
worth it.
being out there in its current form in beta is
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I both know that that has enabled people to use it and give us really great feedback before we release it, and that as soon as we do release it, a whole new crowd of people will start using it, and
Yep.
that is also really valuable feedback that we won't get until we pull the trigger. So
For sure. I've been
uh,
using it steadily for a while and I've had no issues, so just gonna throw that
wow,
out there.
that's great.
Yeah. So let's see. I'm gonna hold off on that. So first of all, Michelle Paladano devs got jokes up in the chat, and he's like, "And we'll release it at the end of the stream." You imagine? Not
Crossed
quite,
my
but
mind
yeah,
the
yeah,
reveal, but yeah.
yeah. We're getting close. End of the month for a release candidate. That's a pretty good target. I'm loving it. And then Pillar 150. Has there been any work on supporting React Suspense? Just before you dive into that, I just want to add real quick that has there been any work from React on React Suspense? Because like it seems like it's a long way away on the React side. Like it's like still very experimental, no?
Yeah, my colleague Hugh Wilson
Yeah.
uh, has a better handle on the state of this than I do. He's done the most work on React Apollo for sure. Um, so if he were here, he could probably give a better answer. We are still waiting for the dust to settle on suspense,
Yeah.
and I think it was pretty interesting. At what was it, F8, the last time that they gave like some presentations about suspense,
Yep.
that I don't know, the vibe seemed to be that like, if you get to the point where you actually have to throw a promise in the middle of rendering, like, yeah, that should work, but that's not really what
Ideal.
they want you to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would rather you did some prefetching, preloading so that it's just ready to go when you render. And there's definitely something to that. Like suspense is cool. Fully async rendering in React might be cool. I don't know. They seem really reluctant to. I don't know. I don't think we'll ever see like async component functions or
Right. Right.
like async render methods on classes. That would have happened by now. I think obviously if they were into it. And so suspense is like tantalizing as a solution to that problem, but I think they are right. Like it's you're gonna give users a faster, better experience if you go to the trouble of preloading data so that it's just available when you do the rendering, right?
Yep.
And we see the same thing come up with like reactive variables, right? Like if you wait until the first time the read function is called to create the reactive variable and then like update it async, right? Well, that's at least one more cache read that has to happen. Um, Whereas if you know, were able to fetch that async data and then initialize your local variable first before you started like using it in the cache, then you just wouldn't have that problem. You'd never have like an undefined result from a read function, right? So like a
Yeah.
little bit of preloading can go a long way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really see where they're coming from. But all of that said, we absolutely will support suspense, and I'm pretty sure that the form it will take is that like the use query, it can take options as the second argument. One of those will just be like suspense true.
Yeah.
Um,
And then it would
I
just
think it needs to be
throw.
something you
Yeah.
opt into, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and I don't think because I don't think suspense will be the default. It's like you're saying. Like I think it's going to be available, and yeah,
yeah,
like the hype train is cool, but I just don't see everybody just rewriting all of their apps and throwing promises all over the places. Like it just doesn't seem to make sense to me.
yeah,
So we got another question. I think we're gonna wrap up with this one because we're at well,
it's a good
7
one.
p.m. Eastern. But yeah, this is a great one, and I think it's a good one to wrap up with. Are there plans to integrate information from federated schemas into type policies, i.e., automatically generating key arrays for entities from the key directives? That's a really good one.
Yeah, it is no mistake that the key fields configuration in type policies is basically one to one with the key directive that you would put
S-
in your schema for
Secrets
the
out.
type in yeah.
Yeah.
So the longer term plan here is like your schema, however you are maintaining your schema, like that is the central asset of your whole GraphQL thing. That's your description of all your organization's data. Um, and so, you know, in the same way that we want you to put a little effort into your type policies so that you don't have to think about it again,
Yeah,
it'd be
that's
really
the
cool, yeah, if we could just take your schema and auto generate some type policies for you,
mm,
something along those lines.
yeah.
So um, in the meantime, I would say as you're writing multiple type policies, look for common patterns and just remember that like it's not all that hard to write like a helper function that returns a type policy or field policy, and then you can just call that function
Yeah.
repeatedly, right, rather than duplicating the code.
Over and
So
over. Yeah.
if you're trying to avoid writing the same sort of pattern of type policies over and over again, that's a temporary solution. But code generation is,
CodeGen.
maybe a longer term
Yeah.
solution. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Lots of movement happening around CodeGen. And the more,
sure.
we see types and TypeScript and um, yeah, it's pretty interesting. I love that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, great. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, yeah. So that's it. So I mean, I think we're gonna wrap up there. So while I'm getting like everything ready, do you have any like last? Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, and thank you everyone for tuning in. We really appreciate it. But yeah. So is there anything else? Any last, words or anything you want to mention? I mean, we've covered a lot, so I wouldn't be
Yeah.
expecting if like we're on empty at this point. But yeah.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So
Oh,
then
are
yeah.
you asking me
Oh, sorry.
or
Yeah, I was just asking you, yeah, real quick, if there was like any last minute things, you wanted to throw in there. We've already covered a ton, so definitely, yeah.
yeah. I guess I would just reiterate that like I really look forward to switching gears from relentless, never-ending implementation to like explanation and
Yeah.
education and all of that.
Yes.
Like that's
I'm
I would really rather be writing blog posts. So
I'm very excited about that
and
part.
working with
Yeah.
other people to give talks and so forth.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And so, yeah, again, thank you everyone for tuning in. This is available immediately after the stream ends on Twitch for the next couple weeks. It's 2 a.m. in Estonia. Have a good, yeah, have a good night. Thank you for tuning in so late. It's really appreciated. We love having you here. Thank you so much. And yeah, so yeah, yeah, we got some more streams coming up tomorrow. I'll be with on stream with Trevor. We're gonna be continuing to build a job listings tracker app. So that'll be fun. Tune in for that. Next week we've got a whole good lineup. I'll be tweeting out about a couple uh, uh, more episodes of Mission Briefing that we got coming up. Again, Ben, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join us on the stream. We appreciate it. Thank you for the intro to Apollo 3.0, Client 3.0. I'm excited. I know everyone else is. Yeah, yeah, and yeah. Let's see. So Todd Libby is streaming. If we do want to head over there, and yeah, I do. Do you got it? Can you drop a username for me, Chris? I need that his actual username, and we can raid. But yeah, so raiding is like when we
nice.
end the stream, we just jump onto another stream, and then that will end our stream. But then everyone from the channel who's hanging out with us jumps into Todd's stream. I'm waiting on that username if you got one. Boom, there we go. That's it, Todd Libby. Yeah. All right. So with that, let me get this started. So that's going. Did that work?
Oh no,
Oh, I
you
can't raid
cannot raid
that
this channel.
channel. Yeah. Sorry, y'all. I can't raid that channel because you probably have to be following him to be able to raid. But yeah, jump over to the links in the chat. So jump over there. You don't have to raid. You can all just head on right over there. You don't
Yeah.
you don't have to wait for us. But with that, we're gonna bid you adieu. We're gonna wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, with that, we are out of here. See you all later.
Later, skaters.